My wife defended her friend who seduced me. I punched her for crossing the line, divorced, and now they're begging for forgiveness. Hi everyone, this is a lurker. I hope this works because I tried posting this from a different account and it didn't work. I am a 35-year-old man who has spent almost a decade with my lovely 34-year-old wife. We don't currently have any children. For over 15 years, my wife and her best friend Amy have been friends since my time in college, where I first met my wife. Although Amy and I have never been the best of friends, we have been friendly for my wife's benefit. She's noisy, annoying, and entitled, the type that interrupts every discussion. I've always thought that about her. She constantly finds a way to get in the way, whether it's during a private chat or a night out with friends. For instance, over dinner with our long-standing friends, my best friend and I were discussing infertility problems in his marriage. Amy managed to be nosy even though we were talking softly enough that no one could hear us over the noise. She remarked that she would slaughter herself if she were unable to perform the one task that women were intended to perform. My best friend Max and his wife were so enraged by this that they excused themselves and departed early to return home. Amy's obnoxious demeanor caused her boyfriend, Khalid, to break up with her. What triggered him, in my opinion, was when Amy deliberately neglected to feed their dog while he was out on business. Why? While she was intoxicated and calling him to come get her, the dog was dozing off. And that's only the beginning. Amy has always treated me strangely. She has been DMing me on Instagram all the time, trying to start a conversation about rumors circulating in our friend circle or just plain unrelated topics. She has always been disregarded by me. Her odd behavior has always been overlooked by my wife, who has never accepted that her closest friend might be malicious. Amy visited my wife at our home following their breakup. Because she wasn't feeling well that day, my wife took some sleeping pills and was asleep in an hour. I recommended that Amy sleep in the guest bedroom for the sake of my wife because I couldn't ask her to leave in her current state. After agreeing, she retired to her bed. She waltzed in wearing only her underwear later that evening when I was cleaning up in the kitchen after dinner. She pretended to be surprised and said she was unaware that I was still in the kitchen. I chose to end the evening because I was so uncomfortable. She began stripping though, and came up to me, telling me that my wife didn't need to know and that she had noticed my gaze on her. I told her that she had a bad idea and should feel guilty for hurting her best friend because I couldn't understand her at all. She nearly jumped in front of me and made unwanted physical contact with me as I attempted to exit the kitchen. Without a second thought, I panicked and punched her in the face. She had a bruised eye. She began to scream so loudly that my wife was startled and staggered into the kitchen to discover her closest friend battered and naked. Amy went on to call me a vile person, accuse me of attempting to abuse her, and order my wife to file for divorce. I retaliated by saying that I punched Amy because she came to me nude and wouldn't leave even after I turned her down. Without a word, my wife passed out right away. I took her to the hospital right away. Although she is now fine, my wife won't discuss what happened with me. Amy, meanwhile, claims that I tried to attack her in our buddy group. While most people don't think she's real, some people still hold on to the idea that you should always believe an accusation. Others claim that by hitting her, I made a mistake and inflamed her rage. My life has been ruined by Amy. My wife is divorcing me and I'm scared this will end up in court. I've already considered harming myself several times. From here, I have no idea where to go. What ought I to do? What should I do next? I would appreciate any advice. I've been considering sending a text to Amy's ex-boyfriend Khalid, who broke up with her, to inquire if she has done something comparable to what he knows. By demonstrating a factual pattern of action rather than a word-against-word scenario, he may contribute to the plausibility of my story. However, I'm not sure if this is a smart idea. If I chose to sue her for defamation, it might be best to first consult with an attorney to see what kind of proof I would want. It may be essential to work with a lawyer who has experience in these kinds of cases to develop an action plan. In this manner, I'll be ready and have someone to help me if things take an unforeseen turn. Amy might renounce her unfounded charges in public if she faces legal pressure. People are making me feel awful about punching her, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be kind to her. After assaulting me, Amy is now making grave, untrue accusations that have the potential to ruin my life. These are illegal acts. This is not a mere drama. Amy says she didn't realize I was still there when she walked to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. Then she accused me of using her. The incident happened about 3 in the morning. The time now is 8 a.m. Amy shared her made-up story in our group chat after she left our house. Due to the early obligations of the majority of our friend group, the false information disseminated swiftly. I've started getting private messages with thoughts and suggestions. While the majority support me, some individuals believe her account of events, while some criticize me for punching her. My wife won't talk to me and has been up all night. I'm allowing her time to take it all in. Update. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to everyone for their guidance and support as I've been navigating this circumstance. However, I've also gotten a lot of negative feedback, with some people saying that the story is a grotesque fiction or a hoax, which is untrue. I haven't been able to eat or sleep since I'm still dealing with the fallout. I hope you find peace in your lives, everyone who messaged me saying I should have slept with Amy or calling me a sicko. I hope the males who labeled me a fool treat the ladies in their lives with equality and respect. I made the decision to follow advice and get in touch with Amy's ex-boyfriend Khalid within the last 9 hours. He admitted that this wasn't the first time Amy had made similar accusations and was just as upset as I was. He acknowledged that she had manipulated him into continuing the relationship in the past by threatening to accuse him of abuse. In order to avoid carrying out her threats, Khalid installed covert cameras and sought legal advice, which allowed her to flee. This insight benefited me since he was understanding and encouraging. I pointed out all the flaws in Amy's story and brought up the proof that Khalid still had. I informed her that I was prepared to move forward if she wanted to take her accusations to court. After her breakup, she confessed she wasn't in her right mind, apologized, and was terrified. In our group chat, I was able to persuade her to acknowledge this since I didn't want untrue allegations about me to continue to circulate. Her admission made everything clear to anyone who might still be confused. She left the group chat shortly after and has since stopped communicating with everyone. She is practically inaccessible today. I filled my wife in on everything that had transpired. All of the texts, including Amy's confession, had previously been viewed by her. But she admitted to me that she had been thinking about getting a divorce and honestly didn't know who to trust. It was a devastating time. I informed her that I needed time to take in everything that had transpired over the last 14 hours. That night, I chose to spend the night in the guest bedroom. It bothers me that it required Amy's confession for her to support me, even though I'm glad she now believes me. After 10 years of marriage, I would have thought my wife would know me better. However, I see that after 15 years of friendship, she didn't believe Amy was capable of such a thing. My marriage has suffered greatly, and even though I adore my wife, I can't get over this problem quickly. My wife owes Amy a debt of gratitude for assisting her in leaving an abusive home throughout their adolescence. This complicates things by establishing a power dynamic. She has, however, downplayed how traumatic this experience has been for me. She doesn't believe Amy is the bad guy, and she attributes Amy's actions to the emotional pain of her separation. More than 2 months have passed since the tragedy and it has been a busy period. In summary, Amy pushed herself on me, I struck her and she accused me of assault. My wife accepted her claims until Amy eventually confessed. Then my wife dismissed it as a miscommunication. I tried to keep the marriage going for 2 months. Nevertheless, my wife and Amy continued to get out frequently, and she talked eagerly about them as though her best friend hadn't just tried to destroy our marriage. A few days ago, my wife informed me that she and Amy were organizing a summer vacation to Greece, which was the final straw. I remained silent and turned away as she informed me about the trip. She followed me and inquired about my well-being. I expressed my disbelief that she would ignore the reality that Amy had accused me of abuse, pushed herself on me and almost ended our marriage. I told her how terrible it was that she had been prepared to file for divorce right away, but she laughed it off and kept up her friendship with Amy. "Why can't you just get over it?" she asked, breaking down in tears. I'd had enough at that point. After telling her that we were divorcing, I turned to go and began packing my bags. She alternated between calling me derogatory names and pleading with me to stay, pulling my shirt, punching me, and hurling objects in an attempt to stop me. I departed and made my hotel reservation. Her friends and family are now bombarding my phone. After a while, my wife came upon this post and connected the dots. I'm proceeding with the divorce in spite of her entreaties. I went back home to formally request that she leave the residence. I warned her that I would call the police if she didn't leave. She even made an attempt to have sex with me in an effort to stop me. In addition, I challenged her regarding a purported Reddit account in which she purportedly sought out sugar daddies. I don't believe her, even if she denies everything. A few of you mentioned that this might have been a test or setup from the beginning. My wife never wakes up quickly after taking sleeping drugs, so it's conceivable. My wife probably dismissed the incident out of guilt. However, it only gets worse because she even brought up divorce in response to a fabricated claim that she knew was untrue. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to everyone for their support and kindness. I doubt I could have progressed this far without it. Since many of you have requested updates, here is the current situation. My wife is currently staying with Amy after being expelled. She vowed to complicate the divorce, as was to be expected. But my attorney assured me that since we don't have children or joint property, there isn't much she can do. Before we were married, I owned my house. My wife texted me the other day, which surprised me. Since I want to preserve any messages as proof, I haven't blocked her. She informed me that she would sign the divorce papers since she no longer wanted to make it difficult. She revealed to me the shocking reason for the abrupt change. She wanted to be able to spend her days with the person she had been seeing. My heart ached once more, but she didn't say who this person was. How could she have met someone so fast? She probably has been having an affair because it is quite unlikely that she met them after we split up. I can't deny that I loved her very much and did everything in my power to keep her happy, even though our marriage is no longer together. It feels like everything is falling apart, even though I know I'm still young and have my entire life ahead of me. About the Reddit account that purported to be her, I'm positive it was either Amy or her. Too many intimate details about my life were known by the account for it to be someone else. They were teasing me, whomever they were. After learning of the divorce, Hannah, a friend of mine, got in touch. She thinks that both Amy and my wife have been seeing her husband, Alex. The situation feels completely absurd right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if there were yet more to discover. I told Hannah to keep an eye out and collect as much proof as she could. That's the current situation, but I'll provide another update if anything new becomes available. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who has been following my tale. Your remarks have given me courage. I've heard from a lot of you that I'm acting morally. You're young and have your entire life ahead of you. One reader reminded me. Even though it may feel difficult right now, you will overcome it. Put yourself first and avoid expressing remorse or unhappiness in front of your ex. It will make her crazy, regardless of who she is currently seeing. Help Hannah expose her husband, said another. Cheaters should not be allowed to get away with their actions. Additionally, kindly update us on the status of the divorce. Lastly, there was a suggestion that the Amy event might have been a setup. The entire situation with Amy was probably staged, either to get you to cheat and cover up her own adultery or to remove you from the situation so she could play around unhindered. I appreciate your support, everyone. Your support makes it a little bit easier for me to persevere through this. Am I the asshole for refusing to change my makeup and style because my friend thinks her husband has a crush on me? Original post. My 29F friend, 31F, has told me that her husband, 35M, has a crush on me and has recently told her that he fantasizes over me. This already makes me feel very awkward, but now she has asked if I can stop wearing makeup and wear baggy clothes around him. We went out for dinner last night at a reasonably expensive restaurant with a few others, 7 of us in total, and she texted me when I got home saying she was angry at me for looking hot, after she asked me to not wear makeup. She's my friend and I want to do the right thing, but there's nothing I could wear that is baggy that would have suited the restaurant we were in, Michelin star. My style is very conservative and I was wearing a very average dress with heels. I've written out several responses ranging from an apology to being quite rude, but wanted to check my thoughts here before I go back to her. I don't want to make life difficult for her, but what she's asking for feels unreasonable. AITA. Edit 1. Thank you so much for all of your responses. It's 4:21 a.m. here in the UK, so I will write out and send a response tomorrow and will update you all on here. Sorry I can't respond to everyone. I didn't expect so many responses. Edit 2. While I was reading your responses, he just liked an old Instagram pic from way back. Bikini pic. He is now blocked. OOP's commenter. Top. Anyway, total NTA. For one thing, I don't think it's possible to dress appropriately for a nice restaurant without looking hot to someone who already finds you attractive. And more generally, as long as you're not hitting on the husband, or intentionally dressing provocatively to catch his attention, which it sounds like you're not, then this is a her problem, not a you problem. Here's another point. Why on earth did she tell you that her husband has the hots for you? Completely inappropriate. This is something to be handled within the marriage. OOP. I'm not sure why she told me either. The first time she said it was cute, that he had a crush on me, then she started getting a bit more detailed about it. OOP is voted NTA update. Same post. Final update. Edit 3. I responded with the following. Sorry it's taken me a while to reply, but I wanted to consider this properly and not react emotively. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't think it's fair or reasonable to ask me to change how I look because of your husband. My advice is to speak to a husband's name and work on your relationship, because projecting your issues onto me isn't going to help you, but it will damage our friendship. You have nothing to be insecure about. You're the most beautiful person inside and out I've ever met. I'm here for you if you want to talk through it, but ultimately I can't help it if I'm smoking hot. Just kidding. Xex. 5 minutes after I pressed send, she knocked on my door. She was already on her way, with a bunch of flowers, and cried and gave me a hug while apologizing. She told me they were having problems and it was wrong of her to take it out on me. We've had a long chat and I'm going to be there to support my friend. Thank you all for your input, you all helped so much. Additional info: I've had a lot of people message me asking if they can post my story elsewhere, and a couple of reporters, etc. I really don't want to exploit my friend's marriage, so I don't mind if you use it, but please keep me anonymous. Also, WTF. I can't believe so many people care or have an opinion about my boring issue. Comments. Comment 1. Love that the friend was already on her way to apologize. With flowers. She knew she messed up, probably in a moment of emotion. Sounds like she has a husband problem. Bit of a boring update, but that's how you know it's real. Hope their friendship stays strong and the friend and the nasty husband either get counseling or call it quits. Gross that he's creeping on his wife's friend's ancient bikini pics. Comment 2. I hope the friend gets a divorce and finds a partner who only has eyes for her. I hope she and OOP remain close friends with a healthy friendship. I hope the husband stubs his toe on every corner in his living space. Comment 3. I hope this really is the end. Seems like the root issue is still far from resolved. Father called me worthless, praised my brother as his golden child. Now my revenge is about to begin. Since the narrative finally came to an end and retribution was meted out cold, I, 25M, feel compelled to tell it. While I was treated as though I had no value, my 20-meter brother was always our father's golden child. This isn't just your average family partiality. It was systematic, harsh, and had a lasting impact on my entire youth. From the outside, my life appeared to be ideal as I grew up in a California suburban home that was apparently upper middle class. We appeared to be the perfect American family. Mom was a loving presence, Dad worked in finance, and we lived in a wonderful house. However, things were quite different behind closed doors. My father was hardly there in my life from the time I can remember. On weekends, he would occasionally be there in person, but he was never there for me emotionally. He always used work as an excuse, citing late-night calls, crucial clients, and interminable meetings. However, Dad suddenly had all the time in the world 5 years later when my brother was born. He went from being an absent parent to the most dedicated father in the world, not to me though, like someone flipping a switch. At the age of 8 I became aware of computers. Mom thought I might like learning about the old PC she brought home from her office. It was love at first sight, and she was correct. As other children engaged in sports or video games, I found the workings of computers to be fascinating. After spending hours attempting to comprehend code and write simple programs, I began learning basic programming from library books. My mother recognized my enthusiasm. Although she wasn't tech-savvy herself, she could see how my eyes brightened when I discussed my most recent endeavors. She would spend hours sitting with me, asking me questions and pushing me to give straightforward explanations. "You're teaching me too," she would smile and remark. Some of my most treasured recollections are of the times when we shared my passion for technology. My fascination with computers, however, was viewed by my father as a personal failure, his inability to raise a normal son. "Real men play sports," he would say, his dissatisfaction evident in his voice. "Stop wasting time with those computer games." He never bothered to learn the difference between Python and JavaScript, which I was educating myself, and they weren't games. When I tried to explain what I was really doing, I was received with waves of disdain or eye rolls. He handled my brother in a glaringly painful contrast. Dad instantly became super dad when my brother, who was 6 years old at the time, expressed an interest in football. He attended every practice, coached his team, and purchased the greatest gear. Dad spent hours instructing my brother in perfect throwing technique, turning our backyard into a training ground. I would sit by myself with my computer in my room, listening to their bonding and laughter. My mom did her utmost to maintain equilibrium. She was aware of the situation and made every effort to compensate for Dad's partiality. She helped me set up for scientific fairs, attended my computer club meetings, and always made sure to acknowledge my accomplishments, even if Dad didn't. When she said, "You're special in your own way. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are." I recall a specific night when I was 12 years old. I had just completed my first actual program, a straightforward game that I had written myself. I couldn't wait to share it with someone. I went to find Dad because Mom was working late. As usual, he and my brother were practicing football in the backyard. Before attempting to grab his attention, I patiently waited for about an hour. "May I show you something, Dad? I created a game." He didn't give me a glance. "Not right now. We're busy, don't you see? This is significant. This weekend, your brother has a game." Everything became crystal clear in that moment. He would never value my accomplishments enough. That night I returned to my room and sobbed. However, I also decided that I would succeed for Mom and myself, not for him. Then my life's darkest day arrived. My mother unexpectedly died of an aneurysm when I was 13. She was there one day to make breakfast and inquire about my most recent coding project, and then she left. Although the loss was terrible, the aftermath was even worse. Dad's partiality grew obvious and unfettered in the absence of Mom's balanced influence. I realized my place in the family in the days after Mom's passing. Dad used athletics as a way to cope with his loss and threw himself fully into my brother's life. He was present at every school function, practice, and football game. In the meantime, I worked through my grief by myself in my room, seeking comfort in writing increasingly intricate programs in an effort to produce something that would please Mom. I can still clearly recall my first significant accomplishment following Mom's passing. I took first place in the state computer science fair when I was 14 years old. According to the teacher, I had developed a program that could assist in organizing the school library system. I had put a note on Dad's refrigerator 3 weeks before the fair, which was on a Saturday. I spent the entire day at the fair waiting, taking pictures, congratulating and watching the parents of other children arrive and depart. I gazed up in hope each time the door opened, but he never appeared. I learned later that night that he had attended my brother's football practice, which was simply a regular session and not even a game. He hardly looked at my blue ribbon when I brought it home. After saying, "That's nice," he returned to his task of assisting my brother with his homework. All the way through high school, the trend persisted. Dad's pride and delight was my brother, who was the best quarterback. His most recent game or his chances of receiving a college sports scholarship were the topic of every dinner talk. As I pushed food around my plate, I would sit there listening to Dad talk about how my brother will one day succeed as a businessman and follow in his footsteps. I got snide murmurs or outright interruptions whenever I tried to discuss my accomplishments in programming contests or the websites I was creating for nearby companies. Dad would respond, "That's enough about computers," and then return the focus to my brother's most recent touchdown. I developed the ability to keep my head down, concentrate on my task, and make plans for the future. I was aware that I would need to set my own terms for success. At 16, I began working as a freelance programmer, creating websites for local small businesses. Since I knew I would need the money for college, I saved every penny. With its assortment of computer components and coding books, my room became a haven. I was wasting my talent, Dad would murmur as he passed, shaking his head. I learned more than simply programming via my freelance business. I gained knowledge of project management, client relations, and business. I had a strong portfolio and a developing reputation in our local business community by my junior year of high school. I was earning a respectable income for a youngster, and some customers even began recommending me to others. I was reminded of Mom by a local bookshop owner who was one of my regular customers. She truly wanted to know what I was doing, therefore she would constantly inquire about my most recent efforts. She said she had never seen someone so young with such a good work ethic and even offered to write me a letter of recommendation for college. My senior year of high school was the true turning moment. A number of renowned computer science schools, including one at a Silicon Valley tech school, had accepted me. Because of my stellar marks, I was even awarded a partial scholarship. However, I still required tuition assistance. I made a thorough presentation for Dad, showcasing my scholarship offers, admission letters, and business strategy outlining how I will continue to support my school through freelancing. I even supplied data regarding possible return on investment and employment opportunities in technology. I prepared for weeks in the hopes that he would eventually be persuaded by a rational, practical approach. Less than 5 minutes passed throughout the meeting. He remarked, "I'm not wasting money on your computer hobby," without even glancing at my meticulously crafted pages. "Your brother has a lot of promise. That money is necessary for his upcoming business degree." My brother didn't care that he was having academic difficulties. Dad believed that I could do no right and my brother could do no wrong. I was unable to contain myself any longer. My voice trembled as I added, "Mom would have supported me. She believed in me." His expression stiffened. "She isn't present, is she? We also do things my way while you're living with me. Instead of wasting time playing with computers, your brother will pursue a legitimate career." I gave my aunt, Mom's sister, a call that evening. After Mom passed away, she continued to stay in touch, occasionally checking in and sending me birthday cards. She remained silent for a while after I explained what had happened. "Your mother would be very proud of you," she continued. "I'll see what I can accomplish." My aunt didn't have much money. Although she was a high school teacher, she ended up being my savior. She offered to contribute as much of her savings as she could. she informed other friends and family members about my circumstances and my potential. With the combined assistance of several of Mom's old acquaintances and my own freelancing earnings, I was able to accumulate enough money for my first year of college. I was determined to make it work, even if it meant taking out loans and working part-time. Dad hardly lifted his eyes from his newspaper on the day I departed for college. My brother didn't say goodbye since he was too preoccupied with football practice. The only person who came to say goodbye was my aunt, who gave me a big hug and gave me an envelope containing some additional cash she had saved. College was enlightening. I was surrounded by people who recognized and valued my love of technology for the first time in my life. My aptitude for programming, which had been disregarded at home, was appreciated. My work ethic and inventiveness were commended by my professors. I poured myself into my education, continuing to work as a freelancer and keep my scholarships. I began creating what would eventually be my key to success during my junior year. It was more than just another software. It was a fix for a prevalent issue I had observed while working as an intern at a number of IT firms. During a late-night coding session, I conceived the concept and felt it had promise right away. I spent every free moment I had working on it, including weekends, evenings, and in between classes. I could sense that this was different from my roommate, who thought I was crazy because I was continuously coding and not sleeping. This was my future, not simply another project. In the midst of all of this, I would occasionally hear Dad say, "Your computer hobby will never amount to anything." The words that had once caused me such pain now strengthened my resolve. I was getting closer to disproving his shadow with each line of code I produced. During my time in college, I maintained contact with my aunt. Like Mom, she was my biggest supporter and always had faith in me. She understood my passion even though she didn't grasp the technical aspects of my app idea when I told her about it. The statement, "You sound just like your mother," when she got excited about something, brought tears to my eyes. Dad and my brother did not attend the ceremony, but I graduated with honors. But there was my aunt looking proud. Like Mom, she had seen my ability early on. There was no more obvious contrast between her sincere encouragement and my father's rejection. If Dad had cared to find out, I would have caused him a heart attack for the risk I took after graduation. In order to concentrate on creating my software, I declined multiple lucrative employment offers. I worked 18-hour days, ate ramen, and lived in a small studio apartment. My aunt still had faith in me, and she would sometimes send encouraging comments and care packages. In the meantime, I was informed of my brother's difficulties in his business program through family rumors spread by my aunt. To prevent him from dropping out, Dad had to pay tutors and make large payments. Nevertheless, Dad believed that my brother had genuine potential and that my tech job was merely a passing phase that would ultimately fail. They had no idea how drastically things will alter throughout my time. But with the release of my app and the beginning of my company's explosive growth, that's where the next update starts. The events that followed would serve as the ideal pretext for the most fulfilling form of retaliation against their years of contempt and rejection. I'll reserve those specifics for updates, but I'm still in awe of how everything worked out. Karma, let's say, has a way of coming full circle, and sometimes the best form of retaliation is enormous success, particularly if you can use that success to impart some very specific lessons to those who questioned you. The upcoming update will describe how Dad's golden child's true potential resulted in a completely different outcome and how my useless computer pastime became a multi-million-dollar business. Keep an eye out. I continue to smile at the satisfaction of what transpired afterward. Update 1. Since my last post, it's been quite the journey. Many of you requested information about how my app really took off, so here is the whole tale of how my useless pastime became a multi-million-dollar business. I found the cheapest apartment in Silicon Valley after graduating, which was just a cupboard with a bathroom. The location was important, but the rent still consumed the majority of my savings. I needed to be in the center of things, where possible partners and investors might meet for coffee. It was a harsh first 3 months. I spent 18 to 20 hours a day coding while subsisting on energy drinks and quick noodles. I began my app in college as a way to streamline corporate communication systems, which I found to be a major hassle when working as an intern. However, it was a very different task to transform a functional prototype into a product that was ready for the market. The root of my breakthrough was unexpected. One morning, as I was taking a break from my part-time job as a barista to pay my rent, a man in a suit saw me coding. When he inquired what I was working on, I chose to give him my elevator pitch rather than my typical evasive response. As it happens, he was working as a project manager for a large tech business, handling the very type of communication problems that my program was intended to address. He offered to use his team to beta test my app for 6 weeks. I received practical input from real users. Although there were bugs, UI problems, and features that needed to be adjusted, the app's fundamental operation was sound. Above all, the team adored it. Even after the beta test was over, they began utilizing it for all of their projects. As soon as word got out, other teams in the organization wanted to use it as well. Their head of innovation, who was considering investing, was introduced to me by the project manager. However, they were hoping for more. More features, more refinement, more evidence that this was scalable. For 2 weeks straight, I worked non-stop to create new features and integrate all of the comments. My aunt, who is usually supportive yet concerned about my health, gave me care packages with coffee and snacks. When she said, "Your mother would tell you to take better care of yourself," I could sense the pride in her voice. It was a weird meeting with the investors. Wearing a suit I borrowed from a friend, I entered a room full of executives. As I displayed the program, my voice remained firm despite my trembling palms. There was silence when I was done. I will never forget what the chief of innovation stated next. "This isn't just a solution. It's the future of corporate communication." In exchange for a 15% share in my business, they promised to invest $2 million. Although the valuation exceeded my expectations, they also had other goals in mind. They aspired to be my first significant customer, deploying the software throughout their whole company. After that, things happened quickly. My initial hires were outstanding coders I knew in college who immediately supported my idea. I continued to live in my modest flat, but we moved into a proper workplace. Every dollar invested was used to grow the business. More interest was sparked by the app's success with our first significant customer. Other businesses began contacting them. We negotiated agreements with 3 Fortune 500 firms in less than 6 months. Our staff expanded from 4 to 20 members. Not only was revenue consistent, it was booming. We conducted a second funding round a year following the initial investment. At a $100 million valuation, we raised $15 million this time. The app my father had rejected was now a major force in business software. When I informed my aunt the numbers, she started crying. She then revealed to me something I was unaware of. 6 months prior, she had visited my father in an attempt to persuade him to make amends. "He just got lucky," was his reply. "It won't endure." However, it did endure. Indeed, it continued to expand. We continued to solve larger challenges, develop new products, and innovate. Prominent tech journals began to write about us. I received invitations to give talks at conferences. My name was well known in the industry. The finest aspect: I never once contacted my brother or father despite all of this prosperity. I kept my distance from them, concentrating on creating something worthwhile rather than disproving them, even if they could see my accomplishment in the news, on tech websites, and in trade publications. That tactic proved to be ideal as the subsequent events, which I will discuss in the upcoming update, demonstrate the precise nature of karma. Let's just say that my father's confidence in his business sense and the golden child's true ability were going to be put to the test in a way they never anticipated. You'll want to know how my brother's promised economic success worked out and what transpired when they finally had to confront the truth about how they had treated me in the past. Update 2. Since my last update, things have drastically changed. Do you recall my father's constant insistence that my brother had genuine commercial potential? That story simply blew up in a big way, and I was right there in the thick of it. I found out through business contacts that my brother, with Dad's support, had launched a chain of upscale sports bars. The idea was straightforward: upscale locations where business leaders could enjoy elegant game viewing. In order to finance this sure thing, Dad had to liquidate a sizable amount of his retirement fund. He was confident that my brother's innate financial acumen would ensure its success. My brother's total inexperience in restaurant management, he had never even had a service position, should have been the first warning sign. That was beneath him, Dad had always claimed. Rather, he appointed managers who were none of his former football friends and had no relevant experience. All flash, no substance, their business plan was essentially a joke. They utterly neglected fundamentals like inventory control and employee training while spending outrageous sums on ostentatious settings and extravagant decorations. My brother's conviction that wealthy people would pay anything served as justification for the exorbitant charges. After observing their operation, one of my developers, who was formerly employed in restaurant technology, declared it to be a disaster waiting to happen. Their inventory management was essentially non-existent. Their point-of-sale system was antiquated, and their staff turnover was skyrocketing as a result of poor management. From day one, the first location lost money. My brother persuaded Dad to create a second location, claiming that they only needed to scale up to be profitable, rather than tackling the underlying problems. Dad took out loans to make it happen because he still had faith in his golden child's unfailing business acumen. The violations of the health code followed. It turns out that things go awry when you assign inexperienced friends to handle the meal service. Both sites received numerous citations. A critical article published by the local restaurant review blog went viral in the business world, which is precisely the audience they were aiming for. The actual kicker: my brother had been manipulating the figures to keep Dad from knowing how much they had lost. They discovered that each store was losing more than $50,000 a month. Due to subpar service and negative evaluations, their upscale clientele had vanished. My business, meantime, was doing very well. We had recently signed an agreement with a large chain of restaurants to use our management software throughout all of their locations. This software may have avoided many of my brother's business blunders. I didn't miss the irony. Dad had invested almost all of his retirement money in my brother's failing business. When the second location failed even more quickly than the first, he had to take out loans. They had enormous debt and no means of repaying it. My aunt informed me that Dad had to list his house for sale. After his reputation in the local business community was ruined, my brother returned home. He was unable to escape the fact that he was incompetent after all those years of being the golden child with innate commercial acumen. This is where things become fascinating though. Guess who had the chance to purchase the debt bundle that was sold to a collection agency? My company. That is correct. The universe can be funny sometimes, but this isn't how I had planned it. I haven't taken any action yet. I'm reserving that for later. My aunt recently told me that they're going to swallow their pride and seek my assistance, which is something they have never done before. You won't want to miss the story's conclusion, which will be revealed in the upcoming update. All those years of being the worthless son had, let's say, prepared the final scene. You don't always need to aggressively seek retribution. Sometimes the best course of action is to just stand back and let others deal with the fallout from their own choices. In Update 3, everything will come full circle in the most fulfilling way imaginable. Update 3. It's better than I could have ever scripted, and this is the last update. My brother and father finally arrived at my workplace yesterday without any prior notice or appointment. They simply showed up, seeming totally out of place in our contemporary computer environment. At first, they didn't recognize me. Since they last saw me, I've changed. Being successful has a way of altering your personality. My assistant messaged me while I was in the middle of a virtual meeting, saying, "2 men are demanding to see you. They say they're family." As I concluded my meeting, I made them wait in the foyer for 45 minutes. With screens showing our company's most recent accomplishments and press attention, I could see people becoming more and more uneasy through the glass walls. My brother continued to fumble with his collar. Dad appeared to have aged by 10 years. The expressions on their faces were amazing when I eventually got my assistant to let them in. Taking in the vista of Silicon Valley, the awards on the walls, and the proof of the success he never thought imaginable, Dad's gaze flew across my corner office. My brother and I could hardly look at each other. Dad said, "Son," without the normal authority in his voice. "You've done well for yourself." The compelled acknowledgement nearly made me chuckle. Even today, classic Dad was unable to offer a direct compliment. After a period of silent wriggling, I said, "What brings you here?" Initially, they attempted to dance around it. Dad made an effort to strike up a conversation about my computer business. He still couldn't bring himself to refer to it as a tech firm. My sibling gazed at his footwear. My mother admitted to hating me simply because I was an unplanned child. At my wedding, my parents chose his party over mine. This is about how my family relationship totally collapsed once I married Emily, who is 25F. I am 26M and in my last year of medical school. My mother has consistently given preference to my older brother, Marcus, who is 27 years old, over me. She has loved Marcus since we were kids and she has never concealed it from me. I'm not sure what it is about him that makes him her favorite. My parents chose to give me to my grandparents to raise for 8 years after I was born, only a year after Marcus. Taking care of Marcus and me simultaneously was too much for my mother to handle. My mother struggled to care for us both because she was suffering from postpartum depression, according to my grandparents. My mother intended to give me up to my grandparents, George and Eleanor Cooper, who saw the seriousness of her illness and didn't fight too hard. Robert, my 52-meter-tall father, was unable to care for me by himself while working. I grew up in my grandparents' loving and contented home, feeling safe and content because I was unaware as a newborn that they were not my own parents. But things started to change when I was able to walk and comprehend speech. Occasionally, my parents would pay me a visit and explain that they were my biological parents and that I was only temporarily staying with my grandparents. For me, these visits were always perplexing and bittersweet. I was thrilled to see my folks, on the one hand. Conversely, I experienced a feeling of bewilderment and desolation. After playing and chatting with me for 2 to 3 hours, my parents would say farewell and head back home, taking Marcus with them. I realized that Marcus was always their top focus as this trend persisted. My parents' few visits made me feel unwelcome, even though my grandparents gave me all the love and attention they could. My parents finally took me back home when I turned 8 years old. I was initially thrilled to see my family again and be reunited with them. But as I realized how much better my life had been with my grandparents, the excitement gradually subsided. Living in the same room as Marcus was one of the first adjustments I had to make. My parents had the option of giving me a spare bedroom, but Marcus had always had his own. In order for Marcus and I to become brothers, they insisted that we share a room. Marcus made it quite evident to me that he detested this new arrangement. Marcus would label me a brat and a stranger if I read comic books my grandparents had bought me or played too loudly. Marcus would scoff and call me childish if I attempted to adorn my side of the room with posters or sketches of my favorite superheroes. Marcus would roll his eyes and mockingly refer to me as the teacher's pet if I proudly showed my parents my good grades when I brought them home. Marcus would tell me that I sounded terrible and that I should give up when I practiced playing the keyboard that my grandparents had given me. Marcus would make fun of me for even the smallest things, such as the way I arranged my toys or the way I described my day. The term dork or nerd would be used to describe me whenever I expressed an interest in reading or learning something new. I eventually came to the realization that the activities I liked turned into points of friction. There was a persistent sense of tension and conflict in place of the warmth and welcome I had experienced at my grandparents' house. Everything I did was problematic for Marcus, which made me feel self-conscious. Imagine being teased for every little thing by your older brother, someone you admire. It causes you to begin questioning yourself. I was too young to realize that he was really bullying me. I wanted to blend in with my family because I felt like I might be the issue. I only read my comic books in the school library after I stopped doing so at home. I completely quit using my keyboard. I did all of this in the hopes that if I changed, my brother would accept me. Unfortunately, Marcus's attitude toward me didn't change despite my best efforts to fit in and adapt. I felt like I was losing a piece of myself the more I attempted to win his approval. Marcus would still find ways to make fun of me even after I stopped doing all the things that irritated him. Due to a skin problem that has since been treated, I recall having a lot of pimples as a child. Marcus would continuously comment on how awful my face was and how ugly I looked. I would cry and go to my parents since hearing this was so painful. My mother, Linda, 50F, would encourage me to stop sobbing and be a man instead of standing by me and reprimanding Marcus. Dad was also of little assistance. He would want to avoid the situation. Instead of coming to Mom, she would advise me that I should confront my brother. I felt lost and alone as a result of Marcus's bullying and my parents' incapacity to provide me with a sense of security and love. I missed the supportive atmosphere I shared with my grandparents, where I always felt appreciated and understood. Whenever they could, my grandparents would come see me, and they would attempt to speak to Marcus politely and warn him not to bother me. However, he never gave them any attention. I gradually turned into a very irate teenager as I grew older. Marcus did not like it at all when I became taller than him, despite the fact that he was older than me. To annoy me, he would label me a slender man, or a giant because of my height. But this time, I began returning the favor by calling him a shrimp rather than requesting assistance from my parents. In order to prevent him from reaching his books without a chair, I would purposefully place them on the highest shelf or above the cabinet. This would give me an excuse to tease him. Even though I occasionally received reprimands for retaliating against him when he complained to our parents, I still felt a mixture of delight and remorse. It was satisfying to defend myself, but it also meant that our house was growing more antagonistic. We fought each other more often and fiercely, none of us prepared to give up. The annual award ceremony at my school was the final straw that made it clear to me how much my parents preferred my brother above me. I was on the verge of winning the top prize in my class since I had put my all into my academics. I hoped for my parents' pride and encouragement, so I wanted their support and attendance at the event. However, my mother told me a few days prior to the ceremony that Marcus had a swimming competition on the same day. Even though his competition and my ceremony were hours apart, Marcus wanted to concentrate on his preparation because, in my mother's opinion, he needed her more. My dad would be there to support me, she told me. I accepted the fact that at least one parent would support me, despite my disappointment. I was taken aback when my dad unexpectedly failed to show up on the day of the wedding. Marcus was having a panic attack before his competition, and my mom apparently contacted him immediately to tell him that she needed him there to help him relax. Dad decided not to attend my awards ceremony and instead hurried to Marcus's side. I recall that there were no recognized faces in the audience supporting me when I approached to accept my medal. All I could feel was a deep sense of abandonment and loneliness. Marcus and my dad weren't there when I got home later. When I contacted them, I found out that they were still with Marcus. It took them many hours to return, ecstatic and celebrating Marcus's triumph in his contest. They informed me how wonderfully he had done and he was holding an award. As though it were the most important thing of the year, they gave him a tight hug and congratulated him on his achievements. They didn't even offer me an apology for being absent from my ceremony. It was obviously a sobering reminder of my place in my parents' priorities. In contrast to Marcus, I was often overlooked and undervalued despite my efforts and accomplishments. Throughout my time in college, this trend persisted. My parents had a great celebration when Marcus was accepted to a nearby public institution, but they hardly noticed my acceptance to medical school. My mother continued to disparage Emily, a talented medical researcher, even after I began dating her. She would say that Emily was too focused on her profession and not enough on her family, and that I should look for someone more conventional, like Marcus's girlfriend. Let's move on to the primary motivation behind this writing. I asked Emily to marry me 6 months ago, and she accepted. I had conflicting responses when I told my parents about the engagement out of courtesy and because I wanted them to hear the news from me rather than from someone else. My mom said nothing, but my dad thanked me and appeared really delighted for me. She then texted me to let me know how disappointed she was that I hadn't given her voice regarding Emily. I invited Marcus and everyone else to the wedding 2 months ago. Even though he didn't congratulate me after we got engaged, I still didn't feel bad about this and invited him to the wedding. I was a little let down when Marcus unexpectedly denied the invitation without providing an explanation. What really surprised me though, was when my dad called to let me know that my mom had chosen not to attend my wedding, even though he would be there. I was surprised and inquired as to why. My mom was going to my wedding, but my dad clarified that Marcus had allegedly scheduled an anniversary party for his girlfriend on the same day. I followed Marcus on social media and knew they had recently celebrated their anniversary, so this news was strange. I chose to speak with Marcus directly to get clarification rather than initially going up against my mother. Even though we didn't talk much, I wanted to treat the matter with dignity and respect. I gave Marcus a call and asked him directly if he was truly not intending to attend my wedding because of the anniversary party. Marcus surprised me by confirming that this was true. He clarified that at first, he and his girlfriend had intended to have a party to honor their anniversary, but they lacked the necessary funds. Marcus acknowledged that he had worked hard to find a unique location for their celebration that was within their means in order to make up for it to his fiancée. Unfortunately, he stated that my wedding day coincided with the venue's only available date. I apologized and politely pointed out that he could have picked a different day, highlighting how much I would have valued his attendance at my wedding. Marcus, however, responded that his girlfriend's pleasure was more important than anything else and made it plain that he wouldn't move their anniversary celebration date to fit my wedding schedule. His remarks were hurtful, and he ended the phone before I could respond. My mother provided the same old justification she frequently gave me when I phoned her to discuss the matter. She stressed that my dad was already going to attend my wedding, so I shouldn't be selfish and ask her to go too. And that Marcus would be upset if she didn't go to his anniversary celebration. My voice nearly broke as I told her how hurtful it was for me to always feel like she treated me less than my brother. I told her that although she was free to do as she pleased, I would no longer recognize her as a parent. My mother then laughed at what I had said and advised me not to get so worked up over my wedding. I decided to stop talking to my mother completely after the argument we had over her decision to not come to my wedding. My attention turned to making sure Emily had the most exquisite wedding and that our celebration was full of love and happiness. Even though I was disappointed with my parents, I was thankful that my dad kept his word and supported me on my special day. My grandparents, who had previously expected my mom's absence despite their encouragement, were naturally saddened and disappointed when Emily and I ultimately were married. They had even forewarned my mother in advance, stressing how crucial her attendance was. They were deeply affected by the fact that she still decided not to go. The situation worsened when Marcus posted photos from his anniversary celebration, in which my mother was seen drinking and dancing uncontrollably. The way they both appeared to show off their indifference to my feelings regarding their absence from my wedding was the problem, not what she was doing. That's the current situation. Throughout the day, my mother never once phoned Emily or me to say hello or to offer congratulations. Though I'm not sure how to move on, I do know that I can't allow them to continue to harm me in this way. Emily is understandably upset with their treatment of us, particularly with reference to our wedding, but she supports any choice I make. Is my desire to sever all contact with my mother and brother an overreaction? Is it time to accept that they will never change and move on with my life without them, or should I give them another chance to make things right? First update. My wedding was a month ago, and since then things have taken an unexpected turn. I got a ton of encouraging notes after I last posted about my mom picking my brother's anniversary party over my wedding. I appreciate all of your nice remarks and guidance. What has transpired since then is as follows. Although my grandparents, George and Eleanor, have always been my staunchest allies, I never thought they would act in such an extreme manner. They told my mother last week that they might take her out of their inheritance and leave me as the only heir. They said that their choice was the result of years of witnessing her ignore me and favor Marcus, not just the fact that she missed my wedding. According to my grandmother, she and my mother had a furious discussion during which she detailed all of the instances of favoritism she had seen over the years. She cited specific instances, such as my mother's unrelenting criticism of Emily, the disregard for my academic accomplishments, and her decision to go to Marcus's hurriedly organized anniversary party rather than my wedding. The way my mother reacted to this news was what truly surprised me. She called me nonstop within hours of finding out she might not be able to inherit. She was crying about the inheritance, not our tense relationship or the harm she had caused, when I eventually answered one of her calls. In fact, she asked, "How could you have allowed your grandparents to harm me like this? I am their daughter." Then she made a startling suggestion. In order for her to attend, she recommended that Emily and I conduct another wedding ceremony, this time with only close family members. She said she wanted to put things right after giving her actions a lot of thought. But when she promptly followed up with, "Once we do this, you can tell your grandparents everything is fine between us," her comments seemed false. Her attempt to explain her prior absence by stating, "You have to understand, Marcus needed me that day," was the most bizarre aspect. They had already paid for the location, and his partner was going through a difficult moment. What should I have done? She was still unable to recognize how her decisions had harmed me. Marcus also became involved and texted me in a furious manner. He said that I was manipulating our grandparents and making them hostile to the family. He wrote, "You've always been their favorite, and now you're using that to steal mom's inheritance." He didn't appear to see the irony of his criticism of favoritism. Emily was also contacted on social media by his girlfriend, who said that they were being unkind to Marcus by interfering with their anniversary celebration with all of this family drama. Emily replied, "Interesting how you're concerned about your anniversary celebration being ruined when you deliberately scheduled it on our wedding day," before blocking her right away. "My father is now stuck in the middle, even though he was at least there during our wedding. He tried to be a mediator when he called me yesterday. He remarked, 'Your mother truly regrets missing the wedding. Is it not possible for you to perform this minor ceremony for her? It would mean so much.' He was silent for a while before acknowledging, 'She's not handling this well, but she does love you.' After I brought up the fact that mom appeared more focused on the inheritance than our relationship. Emily and I spoke about holding another ceremony, but we both felt that it would not feel genuine. A wedding isn't just a photo opportunity, Emily said. It's about sharing love with those who truly care about us. Your mother had the opportunity to attend but declined. The fact that my mother has begun to alter history is especially upsetting. She is explaining to her family that she was forced to miss the wedding since Marcus needed her assistance during a trying moment. Conveniently, she is omitting the fact that it was an anniversary celebration that was purposefully planned on the day of our wedding. Mom's sister, my aunt, called me lately to tell me about something fascinating. It seems that before the wedding, my mother had informed her that she was teaching me a lesson by not going. She assumed that I would abruptly give in and move our appointment to accommodate Marcus's party. She was truly surprised that I had planned the wedding without her when that didn't occur. Last week's phone conversation with Marcus was the most illuminating. Perhaps driven by resentment over the inheritance issue, he revealed in a rare moment of candor that there were other dates open for the anniversary celebration. His fiancée thought it would be lovely to celebrate on the same day as a family wedding, so they decided on our wedding date out of a number of alternatives. "You've always had everything handed to you by our grandparents," he said chillingly when I questioned why he would intentionally harm me in that way. "It's time you experienced what it's like to be disappointed." Through it all, Emily has been my pillar of support. She made a point that I hadn't thought of. My mother's sudden desire for a fresh ceremony isn't motivated by a want to commemorate our marriage, but rather by her wish to be a caring mother for our grandparents. Emily claimed that if she truly wanted to make amends, she would be expressing regret for years of favoritism rather than only attempting to set up a picture op. I am steadfast in my resolve to forego another ceremony. This is about upholding boundaries and self-respect, not about retaliation or retribution. My mother had the chance to be present on one of the most significant days of my life, but she declined. That fact cannot be altered by any number of contrived pictures or theatrical rituals. I'm currently not in communication with Marcus and only have sporadic contact with my parents. My grandparents have been quite supportive of this choice, telling me that sometimes the best course of action is to avoid harmful people. I'm resolutely pursuing my medical education while Emily and I concentrate on creating our future together. Sincerely, I feel lighter after standing my ground, even though I realize this update may come across as resentful. Yes, it is difficult to know that my brother purposefully attempted to overshadow my wedding day, and it is painful that my mother is more concerned with her inheritance than with our relationship. However, I'm not questioning myself or attempting to win their approval for the first time in my life. Perhaps learning to accept the family we have while forming the family we require is what it truly means to grow up. Update 2. 2 weeks have passed since my last update, and the matter is now resolved. My grandfather, George, called me yesterday to let me know that he and Grandma Eleanor had formally created new wills that excluded my mother entirely and named me as their only heir. Even though I had expected this to happen following my previous post, it still surprised me to hear it formally. My grandfather clarified that my mother's treatment of me wasn't the only factor in their choice. They think that I would be able to care for them in their later years more effectively than my mother could. He said that they had faith in my abilities to handle their money sensibly as a future doctor and that, "We trust you won't abandon us to a care facility unless absolutely necessary." As you might imagine, my mother, Linda, has not been pleased with this news. She has been phoning me nonstop and messaging me, saying I have no right to inherit anything from her parents and that I have deceived her. Despite the fact that I haven't gotten anything yet, it seems as though she believes I am stealing from her. She reacted with charges that I had swayed her in their favor when I adamantly advised her to speak with my grandparents directly about her concerns. I reminded her that any modifications to their will were a direct result of the things she had done over the years that had caused friction between us and affected their choice. As our disagreement heated up, she revealed something extremely upsetting in a moment of unadulterated honesty, or maybe resentment. She expressed her wish that I had never been created. She accused me of creating her postpartum depression and disclosed that I was an unplanned pregnancy. The most startling aspect was when she acknowledged that she had originally thought about placing me for adoption in order to get rid of me, but she changed her mind due to her parents' conservative beliefs and chose to have them take care of me instead. "With Marcus, things were always easier," she remarked. "He never required the same level of care that you did. I never felt inadequate as a mother because of him." At last, her comments clarified everything. She was partial to Marcus because she felt guilty and resentful of me, not because she wanted to love him more. For the first time since the wedding, I contacted my father, Robert, following that chat. He told me that he never regretted having me. Even though he admitted that some of Mom's statements regarding my unplanned pregnancy and her battles with postpartum depression were accurate. He genuinely apologized for the first time after I told him how their years of favoritism toward Marcus had terribly wounded me. My dad has acknowledged my decision to give me some space, even though I'm not sure how we will continue to be friends. He now appears to realize how his passive part in my upbringing fueled the dysfunction in the family. Given how much I admired Marcus when we were younger, I sent him one last text telling him how he could have been a better and more encouraging brother. When I moved home with our parents, I talked openly about how lonely I felt growing up with our grandparents and how much I desired his approval. I made it plain that I had no grudges toward him for being Mom's favorite. He didn't, but I informed him that he had the option to be a supportive part of my life rather than compete with me. As an elder brother, I also expressed my disappointment in him and said I was ending our connection. His number is blocked, and I don't currently have any plans to unlock it anytime soon. Throughout it all, Emily has been my staunchest ally. Every day she reminds me that family is about individuals who choose to love and support you without conditions, not just genetic ties. Together, we're concentrating on creating our future, and I know that I can handle any obstacles that may arise because she is at my side. Although hearing my mother's admission of my birth and her animosity toward me was upsetting, it was also somewhat freeing. At last, it clarified the pattern of conduct I had encountered throughout my life. Even though it doesn't always make the hurt go away, realizing why someone injured you might help you realize that their behavior was never motivated by your value as a person. I appreciate all of your help along the way, Reddit. When I was doubting myself, your messages and remarks kept me going. It really helped to know that I wasn't the only one who had to deal with familial favoritism. I would especially like to thank individuals who had similar experiences. Through this process, I may have lost some family members, but I have also acquired self-respect, clarity, and the bravery to put my own health first. That can occasionally be the best bequest we can have. I had to play this ruthless game to save my sister from our terrible family after being mistreated and kicked out at 17. Since every choice I make now will affect not just my life but also my sister's future, I, a 25F, feel compelled to relate my tale. This time has been planned for years, and now that it has arrived, I need advice to ensure that I don't make a mistake. Living in Pine Grove as a child was like being in a separate reality than what you see on television. It's the sort of area where children learn to count by counting the empty bottles of their parents, and ambulance sirens are your nightly lullaby. When my parents gave birth to me, they were hardly teenagers. Both parents had no business parenting a child, and mom was 16 and dad was 18. We lived in a dilapidated 2-room apartment in the Riverside complex, which ought to have been demolished decades ago. Because the walls were so thin, you could hear everything, including drug sales, domestic arguments, and the cries of infants at 3 in the morning. Due to unpaid expenses, we frequently lost heat over the winter. Early on, I discovered that it was best to sleep in layers, starting with my school clothes, followed by my weekend attire, and finally, any outerwear I could locate at the nearby donation center. Although the journey to school was an experience in and of itself, school was my haven. In order to tidy up any mess from the previous evening, I would get up at 5 in the morning. Sometimes it was vomit from mom's awful night, and other times it was broken glass from dad's most recent outburst. When permission sheets needed to be signed and both parents were unconscious, I had to learn how to precisely forge their signatures, which I did by the time I was 7 years old. My elementary school teachers made subtle attempts to assist. Every day, Mrs. Martinez would inadvertently pack an extra lunch. When my shirt got too soiled, the janitor, Mr. Wilson, would leave his closet open so I could get a fresh one. Miss Brady always managed to have socks in my size in her lost and found cabinet. In retrospect, I saw that they were all attempting to establish a safety net without drawing notice from my parents or the police. Not all of the other children were nice. They would ridicule my outfits from charity stores or the fact that I would stuff my pockets full of cafeteria food for supper. To be honest though, it was easier to deal with their cruelty than their sympathy. I could at least defend myself with contempt. Sympathy only made me feel powerless. When I reached 15, everything changed. I was able to secure employment at our neighborhood grocery store, Wilson's Market. I met Mrs. Thompson, the store manager there, and she would end up being my lifeline to another world. A middle-aged woman with salt and pepper hair and cardigans adorned with cat pins, she didn't look particularly noteworthy. I couldn't see it in myself, but she saw something in me. It was difficult during those initial weeks at Wilson's. I was attempting to conceal the injuries from Dad's bad days while juggling work, school, and my personal life. Mrs. Thompson began assigning me to extra shifts whenever she saw the bruises, but she never inquired about them directly. While we worked together, she would teach me about bookkeeping, customer service, and inventory management. More significantly though, she would share with me tales of her time in college, her trips, and a world outside of Pine Grove. She taught me how to build credit, balance a checkbook, and make future plans, things no one else had bothered to explain. "Ashley," she would add, "you have more potential in your little finger than most people have. Never listen to someone who tells you otherwise." I created my first bank account with her help. Neither of my parents had ever had a step, so it was a big step. I meticulously recorded my earnings and spending in a notebook that I concealed beneath a loose floorboard in my room, making sure to preserve every dime I could. Even though it felt like an unattainable ambition at the time, Mrs. Thompson assisted me with starting a tiny college fund. Then the news that would alter everything arrived. Mom was expecting a child once more. Mom wandered into our small kitchen as I was standing there attempting to rescue enough edible portions from a stale loaf of bread to prepare dinner. She was crying this time, but she was high as usual. She said, "I'm pregnant," as if she were making a weather-related remark. "Your father's going to be pissed." My stomach sank with my heart. Asterisk. Not another child in this hell asterisk was all that was on my mind. That evening, I printed out information packets that I knew my parents would never read and used the library computer to explore adoption agencies. Dad warned me to keep my mouth shut and threw a beer bottle at the wall when I attempted to bring up the subject of adoption. It was a difficult pregnancy. I tried desperately to stop Mom from using, but she persisted. I would conceal her narcotics, only to uncover fresh caches. After pouring out the alcohol, I would return home to find fresh bottles. I made an anonymous call to social services, but it was unsuccessful. Pregnant addicts were not unusual in our community. Lily battled withdrawal symptoms for the first 2 weeks after birth in the NICU. Every day after work and school I went to see her, sitting next to her incubator and observing her small body trembling. At that point, I vowed to do whatever it needed to have at least one person on this baby's side. I began working 2 jobs. the Sunrise Diner on the weekends and Wilson's after school on weekdays. I put every dime into my secret account that wasn't used for really necessary expenses. I learned how to stretch my money and make emergency plans from Mrs. Thompson, who also assisted me with budgeting. We both understood it was just her way of helping me buy things for Lily, but she even made a special employee discount for baby stuff. My resolve to get us both out grew along with Lily. I would get up at 4 in the morning to study before school, work until it was time to go, and then come home to look after Lily. 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee became my go-to fuel. In fact, my grades went up. Desperation and resentment are strong motivators. However, secrets cannot be kept in a tiny community, particularly from addicts who are constantly seeking their next hit. My parents became aware that I consistently had money for Lily's necessities, such as clothes, formula, and diapers. They started requesting an increasing amount of my wages. Dad would slur, "Family helps family," obstructing my way to my room. "We need that money for bills." However, I had witnessed far too many of my earlier contributions become small plastic bags and empty bottles. I began lying about my pay, claiming that my hours had been reduced and that business was slow. When Mom arrived at Wilson's during my shift and yelled about unappreciative kids and family devotion, the facade fell apart. Mom was too far gone for Mrs. Thompson's attempts to defuse the situation. She said Mrs. Thompson was taking advantage of me, knocked over displays, and threatened to call the labor board. They phoned the cops. It was embarrassing. Everything came apart that night. When I got home, Dad was waiting for me, itching for a fight and more inebriated than normal. "Your mother says you've been lying about money," he snarled as he swayed in the corridor. "We have bills to pay with that money. I'll repay you if you give it to me." I declined. I stood my ground for the first time in my life. "That money is for Lily," I responded, attempting to maintain a level voice. "I've witnessed the fate of the funds I give you. I'm finished." Chaos ensued. Dad began hurling my belongings onto the front lawn while yelling about unappreciative kids and familial responsibilities. Lily was crying and reaching for me as Mom stood in the doorway. The neighbors hurriedly averted their gazes after peeking through their blinds. It was better to overlook family drama in our area. I was 17 years old when I stood with 2 garbage bags of stuff in our front yard, which was littered with rubbish, and I saw my baby sister cry for me through the window. My dreams are continually plagued by that sight. Fortunately, I was taken in by my friend Jessica's family. Despite their own lack of wealth, they made room in their modest 3-bedroom home on the opposite side of town. Mrs. Rivera, Jessica's mother, assisted me in submitting financial assistance and scholarship applications. Her father used their old station wagon to teach me how to drive. They merely required that I maintain good grades and assist with domestic duties. They never asked for rent. I learned what a true family looked like from living with the Riveras. During their family dinners, there was genuine conversation rather than argumentation. Rather than fighting when intoxicated, they used baked cakes to celebrate birthdays. Yes, they had issues, but rather than burying them in drugs and bottles, they dealt with them together. However, Lily remained enmeshed in upheaval while I was at last finding stability. On occasion, I would spot her at the playground or on her way to school. She was developing too quickly. Her clothing, which were either church donations or hand-me-downs from neighbors, were usually too big or too little. Whenever I could, I would give her money and teach her to conceal it in her stuffed animal so our parents wouldn't notice. Our covert emissary was Mrs. Thompson. When Lily visited the business, she would offer her free treats and update me on her health. Mrs. Thompson would tell me, "She's got your spirit." When we checked in once a week. "She shares your intelligence. She is surviving." It wasn't enough to survive. I wanted Lily to be successful. With newfound vigor, I pushed myself into my studies. My SAT results gave me access to opportunities I never would have imagined. I sobbed for hours after receiving the acceptance letter from State University along with a full scholarship offer. I couldn't just drive back on the weekends because it was 6 hours away, which was probably for the best. The distance would allow me to concentrate on my objective, which was to create a secure existence so that I could finally save Lily. It was a culture shock at college. Being from a wealthy suburb, my roommate didn't understand why I had 3 jobs and a full school load. While I was scrounging money to send home to Lily via Mrs. Thompson, my classmates grumbled about their parents not purchasing them new cars. I minored in business administration while majoring in finance. I felt like I was getting closer to my objective with each class. I gained knowledge about estate planning, taxes, and investing. I began to learn how money actually worked, not just how to get it, but also how to use it to my advantage. I was able to secure an internship at a prominent investing firm during my junior year. For their entry-level jobs, The starting pay was higher than my parents' combined highest earnings during their prime. I put in more effort than everybody else. I arrived early and stayed late. I immediately accepted their offer of a full-time job following graduation. My existence now, 8 years after I was kicked out of my childhood home, would have looked unthinkable to my adolescent self. My home is in a nice neighborhood. I have a good savings account and a steady work with perks. I never have to check my financial balance before making a grocery purchase, and I drive a dependable car. But without Lily, none of it mattered. Now that she is 11, Mrs. Thompson informs me that things have only gotten worse at home. Mom switched from medications to more difficult substances. Due to DUIs, Dad has been in and out of jail. In only the last year, they had been evicted 3 times. No one has bothered to report them, which is the only reason they haven't lost custody. That will soon change. I've been recording everything for years, including every instance of intoxication, missing school days, and instances where they used their rent money to buy narcotics. Mrs. Thompson has documented instances of neglect that she has seen. Jessica's mother has kept track of the occasions when Lily has arrived at their home underdressed or famished. I've spoken with family law specialists. I'm ready, even though I know the process will be messy. Now that I have the means, I can battle for custody and provide Lily with the security she needs. However, I want to approach this intelligently. I therefore require guidance. I intend to show them my accomplishment by inviting them to my home. My parents are people I know. They react exclusively to manipulation and money. They will want a portion of what I have once they see it. I'm relying on their avarice. I can already envision how it will transpire. Like they attempted to embezzle my teenage earnings, they will attempt to move in and take advantage of my success. However, I will be establishing the conditions this time. When they won't go, I'll give them a choice: either help with Lily's voluntary custody transfer, or I'll throw all I've got at CPS and the courts. I want to know if anyone has done something similar effectively. It may sound calculating, but I've studied the most skilled manipulators. To save my sister, I must play their game, but I want to do it well. This is the culmination of my entire existence. This was the reason for every extra shift, late-night study session, every dollar saved. I will never let Lily down again. I'll provide updates as events unfold. Update 1, I appreciate all of your help and guidance. Even though I took action today, I'm still analyzing what transpired. My former neighborhood was my first stop. It seemed unreal to traverse those well-known cracked sidewalks. It was like viewing a film of my former existence. Children were still using deflated basketballs to play on the street. Mothers were still shouting from paint-peeled windows. It was the same ice cream truck that was traveling about with its broken music. At Wilson's Market, training a teenage girl who looked so much like me at her age, Mrs. Thompson was right where I expected her to be. Even though she has arthritis and is in her 60s, she still wears those cat pins and stands erect. Everything I had practiced crumbled when our gazes locked across the store. "Look who finally learned to use a comb," she replied, using an old joke to diffuse the situation. She kept an extra hairbrush in her office for my more hectic mornings when I was 15. We ended up having a conversation during her lunch break in her office. That old coffee machine, which sounds like a dying automobile engine, is still with her. She told me everything I hadn't heard. Since she turned 11, Lily has worked at Joe's Diner. Off the books, of course. Mrs. Thompson handed her a hollow book, in which she keeps all of her money. It seems that my survival skills, including my previous coping mechanisms for our parents' difficult times, were passed down to my sister. She's smart about it, according to Mrs. Thompson. Smarter than you were, even. Lily has an entire network of locations she can turn to when things become tough at home, and she conceals a prepaid phone in her school locker. The children of the neighbors believe she is simply hosting frequent sleepovers. Mrs. Thompson then produced a hefty envelope made of manila. She stated, "I've been keeping records. Times, dates, and incidents. Each time your parents arrived intoxicated or intoxicated. Each time Lily showed up with strange bruises or hunger. Each time they made an attempt to steal or create a scene. This is what the other store owners have been doing. In the same way that they attempted to protect me, the entire community has been covertly defending my sister. At the convenience shop, Mr. Chin allows her to complete her homework in his back room. Instead of discarding damaged books, Mira Rodriguez from the library saves them for her. Old Joe from the diner even tells the health inspector that she is his niece while slipping her additional food. The most difficult aspect was going to my parents' place. With peeling paint, missing shingles, and a yard full of enigmatic stains, the building appeared to have aged decades in a matter of years. By the steps, a broken tricycle that I had never seen before was rusting. It was like a thunderclap when it knocked. With her hair unkempt and a cigarette hanging down, Mom opened the door. When she first saw the suit, the pearls, and the leather bag, she didn't recognize me. In a matter of seconds, her gaze changed from skeptical to perplexed to astonished. "Get out here, Frank," she muttered. "Holly." At 2 p.m., Dad staggered to the door with a drink in his hand. He had lost more teeth and put on weight. His eyes immediately went to my watch, my backpack, and my car parked in front of the street as the recognition dawned on him more slowly. Like a weird stranger, which I was in many respects, they invited me in. I didn't see any cats, but the house smelled like cat poop. A road of empty bottles led to the couch. Mom began to pick things up frantically, as though it would make up for years of neglect. The start of their conversation was the true shock. They pretended that the past had never occurred, that they had never expelled me, and that they had always encouraged my success. While starting another cigarette, Mom remarked, "We always knew you had it in you. Your father's side is the source of your business acumen." I gave them space to speak while I watched them create an alternate world in which they were happy, encouraging parents. Dad kept bringing up bills, giving away that he was having money problems. Mom continued talking about how families should stay together and how lonely I must be in the big city. Everything else vanished when Lily got home. With her rucksack clasped like a shield, she stood in the doorway and gazed at me as though she were seeing a ghost. Despite growing taller, she is still too skinny and is dressed in clothing that was worn out 3 years ago. "I promised," was my only response. She ran to me, dropping her backpack. As our parents awkwardly stared, presumably trying to figure out how to make the most of this reunion, we held each other. I left shortly after that. I set the hook before I went, but I made up an excuse about a work call. I announced my large 5-bedroom suburban home, invited everyone to come over this weekend, and saw money signs light up their eyes. I gave Lily a burner phone and gave her instructions to keep it hidden in a whisper. I didn't have enough money to go on a major binge, but I did have enough to make sure our parents would be there on Saturday. I looked at Lily in my rear-view mirror as I drove off. Holding the concealed phone like a lifeline, she stood on the porch. "Little sister, only a couple more days. We have a few days left before this game is officially over. On Saturday, the second stage begins. The documents have already been prepared by my attorney. If necessary, Mrs. Thompson and half the community are prepared to testify. Let us first examine the extent to which our parents' avarice will lead them along this garden path that I have constructed. If you would like to hear what comes next, please let me know. This weekend is when the real show begins." Update 2. The family visit became something I never would have imagined. A clear demonstration of why I must remove Lily from the house immediately. At 10 a.m., I picked them up in my SUV. Mom had really tried, sporting a dress that I'm fairly certain she stole from Target, with the price tag still partially visible beneath her arm. Dad was dressed in the same rumpled shirt and tie he usually wears to DUI hearings. Lily was dressed in her cleanest possession, her school uniform. It was a weird drive. Dad continued saying that I was just as good with money as he was, while Mom kept remarking on every posh building we passed. Sitting quietly in the back, Lily absorbed everything. Several times, I caught her gaze in the rear-view mirror. She knew exactly what was going on. Mom actually let out a gasp as we arrived at my place. Although it is by no means a mansion, it might as well be in comparison to our former neighborhood. Dad immediately glanced at my neighbors' boats and their drives and began figuring out just how much he could borrow. Once we were inside, the real performance began. Mom started organizing her belongings right away. She remarked, "This living room is just perfect for my collection," alluding to the box of broken figurines she had owned since I was a child. Dad was measuring the garage in his mind and discussing how he could turn it into a workshop. I gave them the entire tour and played along. Their eyes became larger and their clues more potent with every room. Mom began discussing the sense of emptiness in the house and the desire for a familial touch. Dad was often talking about his handyman abilities and how he could actually keep up a property like this. Lunchtime was the tipping point. I had placed an order for simple catering, consisting of salads and sandwiches. I had a fancy assortment of wine, and Mom had 3 glasses. That's when she dropped the bomb, she insisted. She stumbled, "You know, we've been considering moving. Even though this neighborhood seems pleasant, you have so many empty rooms." Dad jumped right in. "We may assist with the expenses. Up here, I could make things better. You would no longer need to be by yourself." I was grinning on the inside, but I kept my look neutral. They were doing exactly what I had instructed. I told them I would give it some thought and get back to them the following week. They were almost pitiful in their excitement. When I was able to get Lily alone and showed her my home office while our parents were preoccupied picturing their future life in my living room, it was the most illuminating moment. As soon as the door shut, she started crying. She said, "They sold my bed last week, claimed to be in need of cash for bills, but they simply didn't have to complete. We were both aware of the money's whereabouts." She told me everything, including how she has been taking showers at school after her early morning job in the cafeteria, how they have been renting out a portion of the house to some pals who traffic drugs, and how she hasn't had hot water in months since the bills weren't paid. Downstairs, Mom was growing more inebriated and talking louder. She was definitely searching for more alcohol because I could hear her digging through my kitchen cabinets. While talking on the phone, Dad boasted about his daughter's accomplishments, her large home, and potential investment chances. When I saw Mom attempting to fit my silver candlesticks into her pocketbook, it was the last straw. She said she was merely staring at them when I challenged her. In an attempt to mediate the situation, Dad suggested that I give them a loan, only for the time being. That night, as I drove them home, I overheard Dad's aspirations to make the neighborhood better and Mom's inebriated intentions to redecorate my house. When I dropped them off, Lily gripped my hand and I gave her another burner phone because her previous one had magically vanished after our parents discovered it. I gave my lawyer a call that evening. The documents are prepared. They will discover exactly what sort of family reunion I have been organizing when they eventually call about moving in next week. Along with statements from Mrs. Thompson and the neighbors regarding their continued mistreatment of Lily, I have added all of the information from today to my file, including the attempted theft, the intoxicated behavior and the disclosures of their present living circumstances. The trap is in place. They believe they are going to move in with me and take advantage of my prosperity. Rather, they will have to decide whether to relinquish custody of Lily or deal with the full weight of CPS and the criminal justice system. Even though I feel bad sometimes for being so calculated, I know I'm doing morally wrong when I see Lily's expression when she told me her bed had been sold. The encounter I've been preparing for years will be the final update. Update 3. Although the emotional toll was greater than I anticipated, the story's conclusion went just as planned. This is how it all transpired. As I had predicted, Mom called on Wednesday. Her talking to authority figures voice was an attempt to sound sober. As he does when he's anxious, Dad was on speakerphone, clearing his throat every few seconds. They, not me, wanted to talk about the possibility of a living arrangement. For a serious family conversation about their future, I invited them over. The bait was immediately taken. Over the phone, I could almost hear them giving each other high fives. On Thursday, they arrived with 2 suitcases an hour early. It would have been funny if it weren't so depressing. They were unaware that a CPS caseworker and my attorney were waiting in my home office. The manila files on my dining room table should have been the first clue that something wasn't right. As Dad began his rehearsed speech on family togetherness and supporting one another, Mom gave them an anxious look. I allowed them to speak for precisely 7 minutes, during which they made empty-veiled attempts to gain entry into my house and made vows to clean up, obtain jobs, and be better parents. I opened the first folder after that. "Let's discuss the drug deals that took place in your living room last month," I remarked, referring to witness accounts and police files. "Or perhaps the 3 months of utilities that were not paid. Or should we talk about Lily's unexplained disappearance of school supplies?" It was almost funny how quickly their faces altered. Mom's phony smile broke. Dad's self-assured stance faltered. The proof of neglect, neighbor statements, school reports, strange injury records, Mrs. Thompson's comprehensive logs of their public intoxication, and testimonials from half the community regarding their continued drug use were all laid out by me. I pushed another folder forward and stated, "This is what's going to happen. These documents pertain to a custody transfer. All of this remains between us if you sign them, refuse, and the DA's office and CPS receive everything in these folders." Mom used her typical strategies, sobbing, begging, and saying they could change. Dad tried to make me feel bad about being loyal to the family. They turned to threats when that failed. Dad hissed, "You can't prove anything. Nobody will believe you." At that point I used my trump card. Using my laptop, I saw video records from the previous few months, including images from the security cameras of my neighbor's drug sales, fights while intoxicated and neglect of Lily. Quietly, I murmured, "The DA will believe this. So will the judge." The ensuing hush was deafening. 3 hours were spent negotiating, threatening, crying and ultimately resigning. The documents were signed by them. They were immediately notarized by my lawyer. I said, "Get out," after it was finished. "If you ever try to contact Lily without her consent, everything in these folders goes public." They didn't even ask to bid her farewell before leaving. They were attempting to bargain one last helping hand when they spoke about money. I refused to comply with their requests. That night, Lily moved in. Everything she owned had been stolen or sold, leaving her with just one backpack. She sobbed as she stood in her new room, which was her first actual bedroom since she was a toddler. Whispering, "Is it really over?" "Yes," I said, "it's really over." We went shopping for her first actual bed the following day. Everything was hers to choose, including the comforter, pillows and bedding. No more sharing a mattress on the floor with mom's friends or sleeping on a shabby couch. Mrs. Thompson joined us in celebrating this past weekend. She brought Lily's hollow book, which she had been using for years to conceal her money. We totaled her money, which came to $847.23. I assisted her in opening her first bank account and matched it dollar for dollar. Lily and I went to register for her new school yesterday. When the principal looked over her files, he was immediately astounded. Like her sister, Mrs. Thompson would say, in spite of everything, our parents haven't made an effort to get in touch. Several times, their friends have contacted, most likely in search of their next score. All of their numbers were blocked. This time, the house feels better, fuller. Lily was watching TV in her room last night when I heard her laughing. Genuine laughter, not the apprehensive type we were taught to diffuse stressful circumstances. She asked if she could have a friend over this morning. I was moved to tears by such a simple plea. It's her first time hosting a friend, never invited them to a safe house. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me get through this. When I doubted myself, your advice kept me strong. To anyone in a similar circumstance, keep track of everything, make your case, exercise patience, and above all, never give up. Lily is currently sleeping in her new room, bed and actual house. She no longer has to worry about what she will wake up to for the first time in her life. We made it. My dad refused to spend Christmas with my bill, and now my mom is blaming my wife for everything. What should I do? Original post. This is a throwaway account as I have work colleagues on my mind that I don't want to know about my family drama, and spelling will be rubbish as I'm fuming right now. Obligatory names have been changed. So for the backstory, I 36F and married to the love of my life 36FK. We met when we were 17, she was out and proud whilst I was still in the closet, so we didn't start dating until I came out at 21. We got married in 2019 and have an adopted 4-year-old son Jack. This comes in relevant in a minute. My sister 27F Sarah has a long-term boyfriend 28M Steve who the family cannot stand. They've been together for 8 years and the whole family has hated him from the first time we met him. He is rude, obnoxious, arrogant and all in all a crappy human being. He's also someone that likes to claim that he is just honest, but if someone is honest back to him he flips out and sulks like a toddler. In fact, my toddler is better behaved than him. He isn't abusive to Sarah and doesn't direct these comments towards her, it's just the rest of us. He's actually a good partner to her and treats her well, which is his one redeeming quality. My dad and Kay hate him the most and will do anything to avoid him at family gatherings. Kay usually just ignores him and brushes off anything he says to her as she doesn't like conflict. However, there have been a few occasions that she has said something back, but it's usually said in a joking manner which amuses my dad to no end. My mum is a peacekeeper and will do anything to avoid drama, so she just changes the topic whenever he starts, but she and my grandparents all hate him just as much as the rest of us. Sarah is the only one that obviously doesn't hate him. Our son's birth mother Tess was Kay's best friend, who sadly died in 2021. This was a real shock as she had an underlying heart condition that she didn't know about and simply went to sleep one night and never woke up. Jack had been left alone in his cot all day screaming for his mom before Kay got worried that Tess wasn't answering her texts and went to their house to see if she was okay. She found Jack in his cot and Tess in her bed. We adopted Jack as no one in Tess's family was in a position to take him in. We raise him as our own, but he knows who Tess is. Obviously this is a very sensitive topic for Kay as it was so traumatic for her and Jack. Now, on to what happened last weekend. It was the anniversary of Tess's death on Saturday, so Kay, Jack and I went to visit her grave. Kay is always quiet after going to see her, and this time of year is especially hard for her. On Sunday we had a family gathering at my parents' house. These happen every couple of months as just a catch-up for everyone. At first nothing was out of the ordinary. Kay and my dad were off to the side talking as usual, only I could see that Kay was obviously struggling, so my dad and her went for a walk so she could clear her head. This is something they have done before, so nothing too unusual. However, Steve had an issue with this and asked why they had left and why he wasn't invited to walk with them. I explained that Tess and Kay just needed a minute. This wasn't good enough for Steve though, and he said she should have gotten over it by now. At this my granddad, who is naturally a very quiet guy, said that his best friend had died over 20 years ago and he still had days where he missed him so much it hurt. You don't just get over something like that. Steve shut at that. Kay and my dad got back and she was in a much better mood. We all sat down at the table for our late lunch and started chatting. Everything was fine at first until Steve started trying to butt into Kay's conversation with my granddad. When it was obvious that they weren't going to include him, he very loudly stated, "This is bullshit. She's getting all the attention of everyone because her friend died 3 fucking years ago. Get over it for fuck's sake, we're all sick of hearing about it." The whole table went silent and I took one look at Kay and knew she was about to go off on Steve. Only it didn't happen the way I thought. Rather than exploding at him, she looked at him very calmly and said that her and Granddad weren't talking about Tess. They were making plans to take him to the Christmas markets, but if he wants to be a dick then no problem. She then went on to say to him that everyone in the family hates him because he's a toxic narcissistic fuckwad. That whenever he can't come to a family gathering the whole family is much happier. That there is a reason he has no friends and that his own family can't stand to be around him. That reason is that he's rotten from the inside out and that Tess may have only been on this planet for 32 years, but she made a bigger impact on people than he would have if he lived until he was 150. That her funeral was rammed with people because she was so loved, whereas he'd be lucky if anyone other than Sarah was at his. After that, she got up and went to the back garden and I followed her. A few minutes later my dad came out and said that he'd told Sarah and Steve to leave. We went back inside and Kay apologized to everyone and said she should have just kept her mouth shut. Everyone other than my mum told her what she had done was right and it was about time someone told him. My dad then found it hilarious that a lesbian had been the one to tell him straight, which lightened the mood a lot. We spent the rest of the afternoon there before going to pick Jack up from Kay's mom's house as she had him overnight on Saturday for us. The reason I'm making this post is that yesterday I got a call from Sarah saying that she and Steve wanted an apology from Kay or they weren't going to Christmas. When I reminded her that we wouldn't be at Christmas either as it is our year to spend it with Kay's mom so it made no difference to us, she got really upset saying that she wanted an apology because Kay was way out of line. I said she wasn't and that I wouldn't even contemplate asking her to apologize because I agreed with everything she said and so did everyone else there. She ended the call and I just went back to work. Then today my dad called me and asked if Kay's mom would mind a few more for Christmas as he was refusing to spend it with Steve so he and my granddad needed someone else to go. Apparently after Sarah had called me she called mum and started ranting and my mum had told my dad to get Kay to apologize, which he said no to and they had an argument and my dad has now decided that he's done with Steve even if that affects his relationship with Sarah. He's not having it anymore. My mum wants Sarah there, and she won't go without Steve so my dad is going somewhere else and my granddad agreed with him. I texted Kay's mum and she said they were welcome so now my mum is furious and saying that my dad and Kay are ripping the family apart. So basically this has turned into a shit show. Kay has said she will apologize if I want her to, just to keep the peace but I've told her no way. Everything she said was true. I just don't know where to go from here and the people in my life all hate Steve so much that Kay could have physically attacked him and they would all still think she is in the right. So that's why I'm asking internet strangers who might have had to deal with difficult family members. What can we do to get into a place where we can be around each other amicably? I'm struggling to see a way right now. Wow, didn't realize how long this got until I went to post it. Sorry about that. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. For things to be peaceful, both parties need to want it. Kay did nothing wrong. I wouldn't ever spend another moment with Steve. I would let Sarah know I love her and will see her anytime, anywhere, but I'll never see Steve again. If you have one guest that basically wants to shit out on the holiday table, there's no path forward with them. OOP. If it was just Sarah upset, then I wouldn't care, but it's my mum. She tries so hard to keep the whole family together and she is devastated by what's going on. If it wasn't for her, then Sarah could go take a running jump for all I care right now. Sarah. This is the issue that Steve and Sarah don't see anything wrong in what he's done. It was just him being honest. I would be happier for her to apologize if Steve and Sarah admitted that what he said was in the wrong as well. Without that, I'm being stubborn about it. My dad told Kay he will fall out with her if she apologizes as she did nothing wrong. There was no screaming or shouting, she said it very calmly. I feel like I'm stuck between making my mum happy and doing what I believe to be right. To another commenter. My sister doesn't see anything wrong in what he says as he's just being honest, but loses it when someone is honest back. I don't understand her anymore. Mom. Taking the high road and rising above it have been two of my mum's favorite things to say to us over the years. I just feel like enough is enough. He crossed a line this time that he can't come back from. I especially don't want my son around him when he's saying things like that about Tess. To another commenter. If I hear my mom say take the high road one more time, I'm gonna scream. I'm sick of the high road. I've been on it for 8 years. I'm happy on the low road now. Later that day, OOP, well, I've just found out that my granny and pa, my mom's parents, are going to my uncle's for Christmas and Steve is not invited, so it looks like it's going to be just Mom, Sarah and Steve for Christmas this year. How OP feels about that? Vindicated, as my mom is like her parents, they're all peacekeepers, and if ever they have had enough, then it just shows that he's not just stepped over the line, he's ran right past it. Mom. Kay's mom has already told her that if she changes her mind, then she is welcome at her house. Even if it's Christmas morning, she is more than welcome. Obviously Steve and Sarah aren't invited at all, but it's good that my mom has the option at least. Later reflection. I have realized that he has been trying to target Kay and my dad's relationship as they're very close. They have traveled all over the country visiting class car shows together, which Steve has tried to get in on, but he doesn't know anything about cars, so there's no point in him going even if they did like him. I actually think he's been trying to push Kay and I out of the family so that he gets my dad to himself, even though my dad can't stand him. Update post. Hi, I know how much this community loves an update, so I thought I would give you one as things seem to be sorting themselves out, kind of. After I wrote my last post, a few things happened in the next couple of hours. First thing was that I spoke to my grandparents on my mom's side. They were there when this all happened, but they're like my mom and just constantly try to keep the peace. That's where she gets it from. They were supposed to be spending Christmas with my mom this year but had changed their minds and decided to spend it with my uncle instead. They have made the decision to not be around Steve either, as he causes too much drama. They asked if they could come and see us and Jack on the 23rd before they head off to my uncle's, which I happily agreed to. This really surprised me and it outright shocked my mom, as like I said, they are the biggest take the high road type people I've ever met, but even they'd had enough. The next thing that happened was my dad called to let me know that Steve and Sarah had now decided that they want Kay to make a public apology in front of the whole family and admit she was lying and that the family loves Steve. He was laughing as he told me this and called them delusional, so any small chance of a superficial apology went out the window. The third thing that happened was Jack getting home from the after-school club with a recorder that I'm sorely tempted to shove up the teacher's backside. So all in all, it wasn't a great day. Through talking to people on here, I also realized that Steve has been trying to push Kay and I out of the family. Organizing trips that he knows we would be able to go on. We wouldn't have gone on them anyway, as a weekend away with him sounds worse than a paper cut to the eyeball, and him constantly trying to get my dad away from Kay whenever we are all together. I think this is because he is jealous of Kay and Dad's relationship, as they're very close and go on trips to classic car shows several times a year together, usually with my granddad as well. Anyway, things went quiet for a few days until the weekend. Our town has a big Christmas fair that runs from November through December, and we always go to it with Mom, Dad, Granddad, and Kay's mom. We decided to cheer my mom up a bit to go on Sunday and then out for dinner after. My mom was told that if Sarah or Steve showed up then we would all leave, and she promised they wouldn't be there. Things were a bit awkward at first, but settled after a while. At one point Jack got my mom and dad to take him on the giant snow slide, and as my mom walked back over to us she had tears in her eyes. I pulled her to one side to see what was going on, and she said that whilst waiting in line, Jack had said he was happy Uncle Steve wasn't here. When my mom asked why, he said that Uncle Steve was a bad man. My mom tried to say that he wasn't, but in typical stubborn 4-year-old fashion, he had argued and said he learned in school that people who say mean things all the time are bad people, and Uncle Steve said mean things all the time, so he was a bad man and that he didn't like him. There had been a case of bullying in his class a few weeks ago, and the teacher had done a lesson on how wrong bullying is, so I think that's where this came from. This finally broke through to my mom. If even a 4-year-old can see what a horrible prick the man is, then she had to as well. She said that she felt stuck because she hated Steve and agreed with everything that Kay has said, but she loves Sarah and doesn't want to isolate her. I told her I would always be there for her, but I wasn't putting myself, Jack or Kay through being around Steve again, and she needed to think about what she wants. Not what I want or Dad or Kay or Jack or her parents or Sarah or Steve, but what she wants. She went quiet and then said that Kay's mom had told her she was welcome at hers for Christmas if she wanted to, and that she could decide on Christmas Day if she wanted. Kay's mom would save her a plate. We went back to the group, and a little while later I saw Mom and Kay's mom having a deep discussion whilst walking behind us. Neither will say what they talked about, but Mom seemed a bit happier after their talk. They have also been talking since, as yesterday my mom told me that she will be coming to Kay's mom's for Christmas, and they've been talking about going shopping together next week. When Mom told Sarah after calling me, Sarah predictably lost her mind and said that Mom was choosing us over her. My mum told her she was choosing to have a good Christmas rather than being belittled and made miserable, all for the sake of Steve and his so-called honesty. Sarah then called me and asked if I was happy that I'd won. She then did the unforgivable and used a few homophobic slurs towards me and Kay and called Jack the bastard of a whore. I ended the call, blocked her everywhere, and then let my family know what had happened and that I never wanted to speak to her again. They're all as appalled as I am, and my granny, Mum's mum, called Sarah and apparently told her she was dead to her as she won't have a bigot in the family. Sarah has been trying to reach out to apologize because she knows she has stepped over the unforgivable line, but I've just kept blocking the fake accounts that she's making on IG. Steve tried reaching out to my dad after this, and when he eventually answered, Steve tried to say that Sarah was just angry and didn't mean it. According to Mum, Dad ended up giving him a verbal lashing and told him that he was the worst thing that had ever happened to Sarah and our family. My dad has told Sarah he is disgusted with her, but will be there for her if she leaves Steve. Until then, good luck. Mum has gone low contact as well, but wants to keep the door open so that Sarah is not completely isolated. I had a few people saying that Steve may be abusive towards Sarah, but I really don't think he is. He usually acts like a dick when the attention isn't on him. He knows that when he says dickish things, then all the attention is on him and he revels in it. After Sarah's outburst, I just think that they're both toxic and feed off each other's toxicity. She lets him get away with the things he says because she gets pleasure out of watching us all bite our tongues and keep quiet. So, Mum's angry, Dad's angry, our 3 grandparents are angry, extended family are angry, and Kay is being my rock, but I can tell she's really angry about what she said towards Jack. I'm just sad and done with it all. At least now I know what she really thinks about Jack, Kay, and myself, so there's that. Not the perfect update, but we move on. It will be nice this Christmas to have both sides of the family together for the first time and not have to worry about Steve being a dick, but I'm sad that this is how my relationship with my sister has ended. I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but it's a tough one right now. The only things that make me smile are Kay and Jack being goofy idiots to cheer me up. However, the recorder can go to hell. I curse whoever invented the thing, like seriously, fuck you. Thanks for all the support in my original post and opening my eyes to a few things. Maybe internet strangers are the way to go for advice after all. Hope you all have a good Christmas/holidays. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, I don't think the dickish Bill and Sarah saga had concluded. I'm glad you'll have a peaceful Christmas in theory. I just think the pair of them are not convinced yet that they're shut out. OOP. It wouldn't surprise me if they try and turn up to my parents for Christmas, but we won't be there, so they won't get far. As long as they stay away from me, Kay and Jack, then I don't care what they do. Commenter. Many small children playing recorders with more enthusiasm than skill follow Steve everywhere. OOP. This just made me laugh a little too hard. Thanks for that. Editor's note. Wasn't sure whether to mark this one as concluded or ongoing. I've tentatively marked it as ongoing, but I'm happy to change it. My boyfriend wants more intimacy, but it's exhausting me. How do I talk to him about it and find a balance? Original post. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years now. He is my first relationship and even my first kiss. We met at university during activities, became friends, and then started dating. He is so polite and kind, and also really sweet and smart as well. We can talk about our common interests and hobbies for hours on end. Since I was a virgin in the relationship, he was not. We took it slow and only had sex when I was ready, which was about 8 months after we became a couple. After that, we had sex about once every 1 or 2 weeks, depending on if we found the time during our studies and if we were exhausted. Sometimes during exam time we had it once a month or every 5 weeks. But slowly he started to initiate more and more. At first I didn't mind and loved the attention he was giving me. I felt attractive and beautiful, which helped my body image issues a lot. Soon it turned into him asking for it every single day, sometimes twice a day during weekends or if we have a slow day with little work and studies. A month ago we went on a vacation together and he basically jumped on me as soon as we got into our hotel room. We barely got to do anything as he wanted to have sex 2 if not 3 times a day. I came back so exhausted from the vacation. I even started saying no to him eating me out, or role play or switching in position, just to get it over with sooner. At this point sex does nothing for me anymore. The mere action and physical stimulation feels enjoyable, yes, but just sex without anything else just isn't worth the time or effort for me. I need a story and emotion with it, lots of dirty talk and role playing and some hot situations. I know that takes time and effort to prepare, but it gets me going wildly. But even if I could have that every day, I wouldn't want it. It's literally physically too exhausting. Also, I feel like too much sex kinda destroys the magic. I know that he takes a lot emotionally and sexually out of sex. It's making him feel loved and desired, and I don't want to take it from him, but I actually caught myself don't doing any makeup anymore and not wearing tight or short clothing but baggy ones instead to maybe deter him from wanting sex so much. TLDR, my boyfriend started initiating sex more and more. I find it exhausting and can't take it anymore. How do I negotiate fewer sexual encounters without making him feel unloved? Update. I spend a lot of time reading through everyone's replies and looking inwards about how I feel. I gathered my thoughts and spent a few days making a list of what I wanted to say when we had the big conversation. On a weekend when we had planned to spend the day together, I sat him down and told him the following points. I love him to the moon and back and want to show him that I love him, make him feel desired, loved and appreciated, but having so much sex with such frequency is physically exhausting to me, which causes me to avoid sex and even sex acts I enjoy because I don't have enough energy and motivation to do it. This also causes me to orgasm not as often anymore. I also need time to physically recover before it may even start to become painful. I feel like sex has become the single defining aspect of our relationship, and many other parts like doing activities together, romantic dates, just talking and cuddling have taken a backseat. I also feel exhausted emotionally and underappreciated from giving as much as I can, which I gladly do for the people I love, while little comes back from the other side of the relationship. I then proceeded to explain the things I like during sex and what makes me go wild, hoping to show him that I still want to have sex with him. I also made a few more compliments just to keep the vibe positive and because I meant it. He reacted pretty well, all things considered. He listened and let me finish, but asked for a little time to think about it. Obviously, I gladly agreed. We spend the rest of the day together without him initiating once. At the end of the day, he said that he wants me to enjoy sex just as much as he does and that he loves me. I was really hopeful for the next week and a half. We spent our time together like usual, and he asked for sex about 1/2 as often as before our talk. We even had days without sex at all. He also started to ask, "Do you want to have sex with me?" Instead of physically initiating like he did before, like touching me somewhere, hugging me from behind and similar things. He also stopped asking for pictures of me, and when he did, it were just selfies. I was so happy that I even took the initiative once, and he seemingly loved it when I asked for sex. Then one day he sat me down with a stern look and said that he hated what this relationship has turned into. To him it feels like we are now just roommates or platonic friends instead of lovers. He told me that the one time I initiated after he was overjoyed to finally fuck me again, his heart was broken because I suddenly wasn't as submissive as usually. I asked to be eaten out and was on top with some more dominant dirty talk, and that all of that is not what he signed up for. He doesn't want to walk on eggshells waiting for me when I'm finally in the mood, but has what he deserves in the relationship. Basically, he gave me an ultimatum. Either we return to how it was before the talk starting right now, or he leaves me. Guess who doesn't have a boyfriend anymore? I spent the last few days bawling my eyes out and eating lots of ice cream and watching some shitty shows. What he said hurt me a lot, and I do not love him anymore, but still the feeling of loss and sadness is all too real. He was my first relationship, and for the past 2 years he was my entire world. No, I have to gather up the broken shards he left behind. TLDR, I took your advice and talked with him about my feelings. He pretended to be okay with it for a while and then left me after demanding more sex again. OOP added more info in the comments. Comment 1, I have an update if you want more information. I have a pretty high libido as well, and I love good, sensual sex, and I want it quite often as I can go multiple times a week, but it was so often that we basically didn't do anything else besides it, and he was emotionally checked out when the possibility of sex wasn't on the table. It was so much that I was physically uncomfortable. Not to mention his really bad behavior once I told him I wanted a break sometimes. I had difficulties saying no, because I wanted to make him feel loved that way, until I realized that he just wants to take everything he wants from me without giving any emotional connection, romance or care for me as a person. I hate that people throw around this sexual incompatibility argument, because if he said he wanted someone he can fuck at least 2 a day anyway he likes and I can't and don't want to do that, that would be one thing. But he shouted at me, demanded we do it how he likes it, and that I apologize for ruining everything by voicing my concerns for my well-being. He also said that he deserves to just take everything he wants from me. So please keep that in mind when you do your judgment. Yes, we are not together anymore. I cut him off after his scary tantrum. Comment 2, thank you for your empathy and for the added context. I know that my update gave more information, but that's also because I didn't see a lot of the stuff he did to me and didn't do for me after that tantrum. Until that point I wanted to give everything to him, because I was head over heels for him, until he showed me that he didn't feel that way back. I get it. I like sex just as much as the next gal. It's just that I have a pretty broad spectrum of frequency I would be okay with depending on what my partner feels like. Sex once a week or 2 weeks? Totally fine as long as the other intimacy is fulfilled. Sex every other day. Great as well as long as it's an equal relationship and we both get what we want and non-sexual intimacy isn't pushed to the side, which sadly happened to me. In the end I not only felt really sore and exhausted, but also used and reduced my body. If we broke up because of sexual incompatibility that would still hurt but we could part ways amicably, this way he just hurt me for no reason. Comment 3. I get that sexual incompatibility can be a huge deal breaker for people, but firstly it's not like we suddenly were not having any sex anymore. In those 10 days between our two conversations we still had sex about 5, 6 times, plus making out, plus some other sexual stuff besides full-on PIV. Also it's the way he treated me. He shouted at me, demanded we return to normal by having sex as often as he wants again, no matter my feelings and with me being submissive. He also demanded an apology and an apology session, so much could be inferred. But before all that for the last weeks and months he left me emotionally starved. He only looked out for his sexual gratification while I had to cherish the few little drops of romance, friendship and companionship. When it didn't involve sex or could lead to sex he was kinda emotionally distant. Cute dates, cuddling and intimacy without sexuality and hobbies together was few and far in between. I don't fault him for not wanting sex, I fault him for how he treated me and how little he was able to compromise. Am I the asshole for setting boundaries with my son's fiancée and refusing to accept her as a family due to her constant manipulation and pressure? Original post. I, 41M, have 2 kids with my ex-wife, 42F, a son John, 22, and daughter Sally, 20. I'm remarried to my wife, 28. I'm very close with my kids. My son is engaged to Abby. She seems nice but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family. She told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge and I didn't live it so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of a specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister/mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of, wants me to be like father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people. Not saying that in a bad way, just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition but did join the two of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad. They weren't even engaged yet. John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that. Laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her and she just wanted that. Told me she cried watching me and Sally together. She still gives me random hugs. I'm a lucky dad. I didn't like it but I do feel bad so I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle in the father-daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane so dancing is hard. At my own wedding I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday. John and I were talking. I thought to address it, when Ab walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what John said she wanted me to say about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally. I said of course. She yelled she's my daughter too and I said it will never be the same, Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain that I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise, but she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home, nearly begging me to. AITA because I won't lie and say I love her or she's my daughter. Update 1. I had planned on writing this sooner but life got in the way in a couple of really good ways, but people were helpful and asked for updates, and I have a surprise-free day, so here it goes. On Mother's Day my kids and their partners go to visit my ex-wife. So it turns out my ex-wife and Abby are a lot closer than I realized. She calls her mom, which is part of where this comes from. Also apparently my ex has been egging it on. On Mother's Day they were talking about the wedding and I guess whenever Abby referred to me it was his dad. My son apparently told her to let it go, which led to yelling. Abby about deserving to be my daughter, ex telling her that she's right. Son telling her that I am trying and she should be realistic about things. Sally telling her I only had one daughter, which was apparently a response to Abby saying to her that as my daughters, they should be united. According to my son, Abby was crying. According to Sally, she was crying and yelling and kicked something before going to her room, and Sally told me she went off on her mom, but will not elaborate, so I don't know what was actually said. But knowing Sally, hoo boy. Around 2 a.m. I got a text from Sally's partner's phone saying Abby really is great, she hasn't been perfect but you should give her a chance and you will learn to love her. I saw it when I woke up. I tried to text her back but was blocked, so I called Sally but they were driving. They stopped by my place later that day because I am on the way and my daughter prefers my liquor and cooking, and they told me about the night before. At the end I asked to speak to her partner alone. I asked if I had done something to upset her. She was confused and I told her I was blocked. She said I wasn't but checked her phone and I was, and I said it was after her message and she asked what message. I showed her, it was not on her phone anymore. At that point we brought in Sally and caught her up. Neither of them were happy. A couple of days later, John and Abby dropped by unannounced. Not something we really do in this family, but okay fine. I had mad salmon, does not take long to cook. I cook 2 more, and my wife serves while I make drinks. The entire night was Abby trying to bring up the wedding. John trying to change the subject, Abby not allowing that. We talk logistics because I am helping them get some good deals through some professional contacts I have, when finally she just says, so I was talking to mom, she said that you can walk me down the aisle and she'll do the dance, or you can dance and she'll walk, it's your call but you need to choose soon. I reiterated that I could not dance. She tried arguing that I had danced a little at my wedding but I made it clear that is different, and did not feel comfortable walking her. She got upset and said, Mom loves me, why can't you? I felt bad but couldn't lie. I pointed out that she had John who loved her, my ex-wife, friends, she had people who love her. She said, but other than ex-wife, those aren't my parents. I said neither am I. She was very emotional, so my wife and I gave them a few minutes. My son and I were alone later. He looked exhausted. He said the problem was that after Mother's Day Abby had called Sally and kept saying they are both my daughters, that I did not get to be close with one but not both, and that it was them against me. But at that one Sally cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Things were said, grievances were aired. John had to hang up before it got worse, but I guess Abby was shaken, but there was a new problem. Abby had decided in her head that I did not mean what I have been saying and was just doing it for Sally. He told me he would handle it. Ron Howard. He did not. So now I get text messages from Abby every couple of days acting like we have a secret relationship Sally doesn't know about. She even called herself my secret daughter and lolled. She invited my wife to lunch, saying 2 out of 3 of his girls going out. She has even started using the pressure of showing up at events like a recent barbecue to play a certain image. She hugs me more and holds it. Wants to take pictures with just me or my wife and I, but always a few with just me to post with captions I do not like. My wife is getting especially annoyed because of how she is with her. I guess Abby surprised her with Father's Day plans for me that had to be shut down. As it is, she still inserted herself into the day, but she has a soft spot for her, and when Abby gets emotional she caves. My wife is a sweetheart. I asked him if he was upset with me and he said no, he just wished it was different. He said we're good, but he's worried he and Sally aren't. Which is when I took the advice of some people and suggested premarital counseling. He said he would talk about it. Abby is insisting Sally go to her fitting. That shop should pay-per-view that potential Royal Rumble because Sally is not holding her feelings back anymore. I told him Sally loves him and I'll talk to her, but for now it is stressful all around. Abby driving my wife crazy with her ideas for what my girls should be doing, driving me crazy with dad-daughter content, drove Sally to the edge, and oh yeah, last night sent me an email with 3 styles of father-daughter dances and song options, so I'm not feeling any more respected or heard than before. The 6 of us have barely been in the same room in order to let things calm down since Father's Day, which was great until it was a shit show. Sorry this is so long, with all the craziness this is still the abridged version. We are supposed to meet Friday. Sally's partner and I have a bet going about how bad it will go. So onward and upward. I hope you fathers had a less dramatic day than I did, and by any chance does anyone know exactly how bad of a crime I need to commit to enter witness protection? Just curious. Update 2. I have gotten requests for updates on my situation, and as I enjoy a refreshing mojito and my wife her mojito, life feels good and the perfect time to amuse the world with my pain and familial drama. Plus a cousin of mine who apparently reads these and knows my situation gave me the convincing argument of dude, you can't keep people hanging. And how can I argue with that airtight argument? I apologize for how long this is, a lot has happened. My wife's pregnancy is going well, keeping her as stress-free and pampered as possible has been my focus. It is such a different experience this time, Both because of how much more involved I can be and how much better a relationship I have with my wife than I had with my ex. My daughter Sally has been great, even her partner has been great, helping with the nursery or driving her around when I can't. My wife doesn't know because it is a surprise, but my son has been building a crib for the baby, modeled after the one I built for him and his sister, to show my wife his support. My son is a good man, and he is still in there, he just has a soft spot for Abby. Which I guess gets us to the part of the movie where Godzilla shows up and starts busting up buildings. So I called a family meeting with my kids to talk about the situation. Told John his sister was only doing wedding activities she wanted to and that the guilting request needed to stop, that this was hurting his relationship with his sister. Sally was happy I said it so she did not have to yet again. I told him if he did not stop her from messaging me I would block her with a bluntly honest explanation why. We got a lot out, John seemed to understand, but then a few days later they insisted on coming to talk. Sally and I decided we would get everything out. So all of us ate at our place. Abby started in immediately about baby shower stuff and I told that is the kind of thing we wanted to talk about. I told her that I understood she has been trying to fill a hole that she has, that she thought she was getting a father, a second mother, she calls my ex-wife mom apparently, and a sister. I told her it was still possible but that she needed to start listening to us. I told her that for the sake of family we would give her a fresh start, if she agreed that moving forward she would respect our boundaries. My daughter did not love this idea but loves her brother and was willing to try. Abby tried to say that since we were starting over we could define what the relationship would be and just be family. We told her we were not ready for that it needs to happen organically. She got mad that I am closer with my daughter's partner, which is true but we just get along, and that she deserved it for trying so hard. My daughter said something about trying things we actually want. She ran to our bathroom, he ran after her. After a while I checked on him. I could hear her repeating, "This is not what I wanted." My wife, daughter and her partner went out to the patio to give them privacy and salvage the night. After a bit I got a text saying they had just left. I checked in with him the next day and he said they talked more at home and she understood. For a couple of weeks things were good. The text stopped except the occasional wedding question, since it was getting closer. She stopped pushing herself on my wife and Sally, and we thought was involving us in less in wedding planning out of respect, since as it was they only got the venue at the rate they did because of my professional connections and they know I was willing to help but not interested in helping plan, even if I'm good at event planning. But then I got a call from the venue telling me the card I used had been declined. Now this is a specific card I use for big purchases because of the miles so I knew it had a high limit. That was how I learned that they had changed dates by 2 months despite being informed I would still be out much of the money because it was too close to the date. I was furious. I mean I have been lucky in life financially but I am not blow off deposits like nothing wealthy. Called my son, said he needed to get his ass to the house, just him. They both came. When they arrived I opened the door, she actually started with, "Dad." I think I just replied, "You have got to be fin kidding me," and walked toward the table. Abby had the nerve to ask where dinner was. My response was not polite as I made it clear that was not why they were here. I hoped my son would not lie to me so I asked what was going on with the venue. She started going into wedding details but my son interrupted to tell me they postponed because my ex-wife was unavailable because of a surgery and he had not told me because he was putting money together to pay the lost money himself, and he had just reached out to guests to let them know. And that is when Abby's mouth opened. "We have extra time to work on our dance." Now during this time my wife came home, and I was walking her toward the bedroom when Abby said that. My pregnant wife with me said, calmly, "I have different feelings about that and will elaborate further shortly," or something like that. Then I laid my wife down and got her water, turned on her symphonic covers of popular songs and walked back to the table and said something like, "You are out of your fee-in mind, have you ever been listening?" I made it clear I was done with this nonsense, we all were. And kind of lost it asking she did not hear us last time because her head was up her ass. She was stunned silent, "What a beautiful sound," and looked at me while I, admittedly with little filter, explained what Sally and I thought of our time with her and her attempts to force us to love her without even getting to know us. She started crying and stood up and shouted, "Then what was this even for?" John asked what she meant, if she meant them, and he started to freak out. She was frantic and said she meant delaying the wedding. Because, and I'm pouring another drink to write this, it was a ploy. My ex-wife and her decided if I had more time I would come around. Apparently my ex told her not to worry about the money because I am loaded. She has always been bitter. I make so much more than I did when we were married, as if that is out of spite rather than my career arc. I think she did that on purpose, frankly. But she not only told me that lie, she and my ex told John as well. He was distraught. Repeating, "You lied to me, as she tried to spin it, but he was letting it out about how much he has defended her and covered for her, and she lied to him too. She was defensive and blamed my ex for telling her things and me for being stubborn. She yelled, "Why can't I just call him dad?" And finally, after so long, I heard John respond, "Because he is not your effing dad." She started crying and something about his being the one that told she could call me that, and he said he told her she might be able to eventually, but he had told her again and again to slow down. She started sobbing and went to sit on her chair but missed and fell on the floor. Appreciating physical humor to break the tension, I admittedly chuckled and hid my mouth behind my drink. This all led to a lot of sobbing. I said I needed to check on my wife, and as I walked out she was repeating, "I just want him to be my dad too." I came out and he was walking her to the door and apologized. I said not to. They left. He came over a few days later and said they had a long talk at home. He even asked her if she would have dated him if there was never a chance of being in the family. He believed her when she said yes, but she admitted I was a big draw as well. I was the kind of dad she always wanted. My relationship with Sally is what she always wanted, and the way she said it gave John doubts that she loves him for him. I talked about marriage counseling, how his mother and I tried it, and, while it did not save us, it provided clarity and an impartial voice. I pointed out they both like coming to me, but I cannot be impartial, and if they are trying then they need to do it for real. Abby texted asking if I was the one who suggested therapy. I responded with, "Does it matter if John wants to?" She asked why it was so bad. She wants to know what I think, and I just said John is the man whose opinion should matter most to her. They fought due to the text. She agreed to the counseling and the wedding has been postponed. I may have done a dance. So they are in counseling. He said she struggles, but I obviously do not know details. She is pressing for me and Sally to go to a session with her. Sally told her she did not want to hear Sally unfiltered, and I am not interested. Abby has been leaving Sally alone. She stopped texting me except for the occasional general question, which includes some attempt to go deeper. My wife still occasionally spends time with her because she's very into her pregnancy, more so than I like, but it is my wife's call. So that is where we are. Sorry it was so long, but alcohol makes for a poor editor. Update 3. I was told I should do updates here. People have been asking me to, and to get into what went down on Father's Day and at their mother's house. I have been extremely busy these last few months, but am enjoying my temporary unemployment and thought of this account because of the recent Thanksgiving drama. I will do an update and then we'll share what happened earlier. Oh, and to whomever made the joke that Abby finally got me to dance, that made me laugh. I shared that with the family. My time has been largely caring for my wife. I tend to dote, I know. We are having a boy. We are really excited, though neither of us really had gender preference. I have raised both, and both experiences were wonderful. Now we are discussing names, who we are going to honor. I thought everything had been quiet, but recently found my wife crying and found out I was wrong. Given how busy I have been with work, and my wife knowing I would be free again once we got into this month, my wife has kept this to herself. Apparently Abby has been pushing for one Thanksgiving this year. Things have been quiet with Abby. My son said the wedding blowing up woke her up, and that therapy had been helping. But then this. My understanding is that while John has been talking less with his mother because of all that happened, Abby did the opposite. From my wife's telling, Abby dropped by one day with my ex-wife. My wife intensely dislikes my ex-wife because of lies she spread about my first marriage ending due to infidelity with her, despite there being no infidelity and the linear nature of time making it impossible for us to have slept together back then. Before anyone asks, my ex-wife does not actually think there was infidelity. I would get into that, but I am sure I would sound biased. Anyway, my wife looked at our camera app, saw who it was and called my daughter. Apparently the two of them were keeping things from me because I was working 18-hour days and they did not want me dealing with anything else. I wish they had not done that, but I appreciate the thought. I am really lucky to have such caring people around me. My daughter called her mom and said something that made them leave in a hurry. She will not tell me what, but she smiles when I ask. I called John, but he was dealing with some hard work news, so I just was there for him and left the other alone. The next day Abby came back, alone this time. My wife saw it was her and asked her what she wanted through the door. Abby said to apologize. My wife let her in, she is too nice, and after a nice talk Abby asked about the whole family getting together for Thanksgiving. My wife said of course, she assumed as much. A couple of days later in our group chat we were discussing details, who brings what, and Abby asks what else is needed. I say John already committed and she asked what about my ex-wife, what should she bring? In the time I have known Abby she has never made an intentional joke that funny, so I asked what she was talking about and she mentioned the whole family comment, and my daughter and I both asked what made her think we counted her as family. She actually replied, she is my family. I don't have a dad who wants me, just a mom, and my mom deserves to be with family on Thanksgiving. Sally replied, well, we'll miss you and John then. Abby asks how she can say that. Sally asks how she can be so stupid. John says not to call her stupid, and I say that is fair, but there is no real way she thought my wife thought she meant my ex-wife. At this point my wife had filled me in. And then, this is so stupid. She uses my son's phone to add my ex-frigging wife to the group chat. She then thanks us for the invitation and asks what she can bring. As I was typing, my daughter beats me to it and asks what she thinks she is doing. She knows she is not welcome, but says it less politely. My wife types, you could not have thought she was included when I said family. Abby responded that she was not coming as my family but as hers. Sally let her mom have it. She already is not talking to her much and said if my ex-wife is there then she is not. I mentioned there was never a chance X was going to come and said I understand Abby and John wanting to go to their mom's house so she is not alone. John typed, plans not definite, we'll let you know. He has since told me that he is not going to go to his mom's place but wanted to tell Abby alone first. All I can think about is the comment about not having a dad who wants her, because it means she is still thinking about me as a dad, I believe. Just a negligent one. I mentioned that to my son and he said he noticed it too and had brought it up at therapy, because family is such a frequent topic, though I obviously do not know the details. Wow, I thought this would be brief but that was a lot. I will get into the crazy stories later if there are people seeing this who want me to. I do not know how posting from here works in terms of anyone seeing it, but this has been good to get out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Someone needs to explain sunk cost fallacy to John. I genuinely cannot believe he is still with her after the sheer volume of times she has disrespected him, his boundaries, and your family. Maybe this was back in an earlier post, but has anyone really taken the time to reason with him that there are other women out there and he deserves so much better than this kind of relationship? OOP, I had a talk when this started. So did his sister. After the blow-up with the wedding, his sister and I took him out for a game and some time to really talk after. That was when he apparently demanded counseling. I am happy that for now marriage is on hold, at least. He is seeing her a bit more honestly, but is still too optimistic, in my view. OOP needs to let his wife know not to let Abby in when he is not home. OOP. I have asked my wife to never let her in if I'm not here after last time. Well, actually I had already asked her, but after the last incident my wife has agreed. You are exactly correct that she takes advantage of my wife's kindness, though once our boy is here I think she will be very protective and will hold strong. I have told John that Abby will not be holding our baby, at least for the foreseeable future. OOP and his daughter need to have a serious talk with his son about Abby. OOP. His sister and I had a serious conversation with him a little after everything blew up. It seems to be what inspired both his demand for counseling and putting the marriage on hold. He is better about seeing her honestly. His sister said something about Abby having similarities to their mother, which would have been fighting words from anyone else, and I saw the temper that rarely comes out. But then he listened because she clearly put thought into it. I never thought about it. I am proud to have kids smarter than me. I know my boy doesn't come off as a genius in these posts, and fair enough in that department, but professionally he is brilliant. She laid her reasoning out in excruciating detail. He listened though because she was not enjoying it at all. It was sincere. Some seem to have clicked because since that talk he has been different with her. I just am not getting my hopes up. Commenter 2. When two crazies are feeding off each other's crazy, they can start thinking anything is possible. I have a feeling that even if your son leaves her, she's not going to go away peacefully. Her and your ex sound like peas in a pod, unfortunately. OOP, my daughter really went at him pointing out their similarities. She made her case well and thankfully it shook him up. I caught my wife cheating after 20 years of love, so I confronted her affair partner and ended his marriage. Now my life is in shambles. I didn't notice the signs that were there. Here are a handful that come to mind. She began sending strange late-night texts. She frequently went out for drinks with her pals. I was happy that she was being friendly, even if this was not her usual behavior. She attended yoga once a week, but it appears that she was not compensated because she assisted with setup and cleanup and the instructor was one of her coworkers. In my opinion, she was also quite rigid for someone who practiced yoga. Callers who are unknown hang up. If we were near each other's phones, we would frequently answer them. She had an unidentified caller on multiple occasions who would end the conversation as soon as I responded. Although we received a lot of spam calls, the calls were typically from telemarketers or debt collectors trying to locate the number's prior owner. It's rarely a hang-up. I was not expected to return until tonight because I work out of town. Tomorrow was our scheduled departure for a 2-week road trip. I came home yesterday afternoon because work was sluggish. Since we've been so busy this summer with family and friends, this trip was meant to offer us some alone time. I didn't recognize the truck in my driveway when I got home. Recently, my neighbor inquired about my opinion of the new truck, but I assumed he was wrong and didn't give it much thought. I had a horrible instinct as soon as I saw the truck. The feeling was there, and it was powerful, even though I loved and trusted my wife. I crept to the window of our bedroom on the side of the house. It was open, and as I approached I could hear them. My worst suspicion was validated when I peered out the window. On my bed they were straight there, nude. I turned to leave. I've been resisting the temptation to do something I'll later regret. Right now, I'm having a hard time caring what happens to me. I spent the night in my family's cabin and drank all that was there. I was about to confront her on my way home today, but I changed my mind. I'm not prepared. Anger is all I can feel. Violence is all I can think about. Right now, I'm not in a good enough state to see her. I'm currently back at the cabin. I've spent the last hour gazing at a 60-ounce bottle of rum. I don't want to become wasted and make poor choices, but I do want to get wasted and forget this. I am aware that this is a pivotal time in my life and that what I do in the days ahead will determine how I live the rest of my days. I am there. I need assistance. I'm contacting strangers because I'm not ready to talk to friends or relatives. F this planet. Edit. The rum will remain nearby for the time being, but I have made the decision not to consume it. My brother is on his way and should be here in a few hours, according to the phone call I made. My wife just texted me to tell me how much she loves me and how excited she is for our trip. I still haven't replied. In addition to my brief update, I wanted to clarify a few remarks and queries that continued to come up. I feel much better today, if you can't tell. The pain subsided almost entirely. Although I still feel like I've been hit in the stomach, I've started to look ahead. I don't think this is correct. Am I just incredibly resilient, or is this a sign of things to come? To shed some light on the queries and remarks I've received, I've included some cliff notes. When I mentioned wife and best friend, I meant the dual roles my wife and I had in our relationship. I didn't even know the other guy, let alone consider him my best friend. I didn't get a good look at him, but based on my fleeting impression and the fact that I saw his car, I don't think it's someone I know. We are childless. However, we intend to have them shortly. We recently sold our home, and when the new owners move in September, we plan to relocate closer to my place of employment. Like he did for me, I will express my gratitude to my neighbor in a subtle way. After a long work travel, I must admit that coming home to Willow P may be one of the worst things. I sincerely apologize for what occurred to you. As for us, we're just getting started, so grab a seat, and let's get started with the first update. My brother and I had a lengthy conversation when he got there. He has been my actual best friend, and I've come to learn that I should never forget that and that he will always support me without passing judgment, just as I would support him. Despite the fact that we occasionally argue, he truly sets the bar for what true friendship is. I chose to reply to my wife's text yesterday night as I was meant to be at home. It made sense for me to just be texting her because we are not permitted to have phones on the premises. She is aware that I may easily slip in a few texts. I informed her in writing that I would not be able to call her until the end of the weekend because I had to travel to one of my company's remote locations. I informed her that I will reschedule after canceling all of the reservations. I rented a romantic bed and breakfast on the vineyard, and she said she could bring her best friend over this weekend. I was aware that she didn't want me to believe that her best buddy would be attending. Since it was non-refundable, I informed her that I had already given it to my brother and his wife, who would reimburse me in a month. I canceled every reservation this morning, with the exception of the romantic one. I'm going with my brother. Luckily, the hotel allowed us to move from the honeymoon suite to a 2-bedroom. This just ended up being a long overdue fishing excursion with my brother because there is a really great lake and boat rentals close by. I am therefore free this weekend. That reduced my worry and gave me more time to reflect because I won't have to write or speak to her for a few days. Right now, I'm considering getting a divorce. There's really no other way for me to see it. My brother is in favor of this, however he has requested me to talk to someone for a few weeks. On Monday, his wife is willing to speak with me through a friend of hers who works as a couples counselor. At least it might help me sort out some of this muddle, but I don't see it changing my mind. In order to at least get ready for what I believe is inevitable, I am also starting to talk to lawyers and taking a lot of advice from this place. I want to do it correctly. I don't think she would try to cheat on me, but I also don't think she would try to do so I think I should be ready for anything. That was a brief update, but it gives us a glimpse into the OP's current thoughts. Let's move on to the following update, which is quite extensive and contains a wealth of information. Now, let's go on to that. The last few days have seen a lot of events. To go to the Tibetan breakfast on the vineyard, my brother, Matt, and I drove for over 5 hours. I am really grateful that he has supported me during this time. It helped me get my thoughts straight, although it was more of a venting session. Our fishing trip wasn't very successful. The proprietor of the B&B provided us with some food after we both caught a few trout that we had to release because of their size. Those were quite successful. We took a car back to Matt's house on Sunday. He lives almost an hour away from my home in the town next door. Jen, Matt's wife, was waiting for us when we got there, and we all sat and opened a bottle of white wine that was stored in the cooler. For me, the weekend officially ended at this point. Jen informed me that she chose to spy on my wife while we were abroad. She informed me that the man spent the entire night in my house on Friday, but she arrived on Saturday morning just as he was about to leave. She located the apartment where he resided after following him home. On Saturday night, while she was texting me to tell me how much she loved and missed me, my wife stayed over there. Jen claimed to be dividing her time between stalking my wife and visiting relatives in my town. She claimed to have caught my wife on Sunday morning as she was leaving his apartment and snapped a few photos of them cuddling and kissing before she got into her car. I'd rather not see them. For me, that essentially sealed the deal. If she can so easily go from telling me she loves me and being with another guy, I doubt I could ever trust her again. Nevertheless, I made the decision that I would not react hastily because of my feelings. I must maintain my composure. Jen then informed me that Sharon would be joining us for supper. Jen made an appointment for me with a psychotherapist named Sharon. To be clear, this was my first encounter with my wife, and she has never met her. We got along well, and Sharon was a really pleasant girl. Following dinner, Sharon and I took the dogs for a stroll around Matt's neighborhood while also having a little private chat. Sharon was quite helpful since she listened well and gave me the impression that I didn't need to be cautious. Being that open about how I felt was therapeutic. Even though I get along well with my brother, this was something new and much needed. I enjoy blogging on Reddit for the same reason. It's a way for me to vent and clear out some of the chaos in my thoughts. The only practical advice Sharon provided me during our hour-long walk was to not put off talking to my wife. It will be more difficult to discuss this with her the longer I wait, she said. She explained that right now, I need clarity more than anything else, and my wife is the only one who can provide it. Jen and Matt invited me to remain with them for as long as needed later that evening. I talked to my manager, who was able to arrange for me to live in corporate housing because I'm aware that Matt and I have a time limit on living together. Although I had to leave on days off, I had been staying there every other week for some time. If I needed to, he was able to arrange for me to remain full-time for a few months. Later that week, I made the decision to reschedule with Sharon. For the first session, I thought talking would be enough, and she agreed. I lay in bed all night Sunday, trying to figure out how to go about this. I found this difficult because even the hypothetical situation in my mind made me feel depressed or angry. I made the decision to wing it. Normally, I perform well under pressure. I got up the following morning and bid Matt and Jen farewell. What if he's there when I get home? I asked myself as I drove home. I then reasoned that it would probably only make me feel even more irate than I had been a few days prior. I choose to start with a drive-by. My wife's automobile and his truck were not present. After going inside and gathering a number of necessities and items I didn't want to part with, I proceeded to the man's residence. His truck was there, but so was her car. To find out where she was, I made the decision to write her. "I'm getting groceries," she said. I drove past the grocery shop and verified she was there because I don't trust her at the moment. Admitting that I did that makes me feel so bad, but that's the only way I can be sure of anything, and it breaks my trust. We need to discuss, so I contacted her again and implored her to simply come home. "What's wrong?" she replied in writing. I just replied that she must be prepared to be honest before shutting off my phone. 15 minutes later, she arrived home. As usual, she came over to give me a kiss and an embrace when she entered. I turned my back on her. She repeated, "What's wrong?" to me. I therefore advised her to start telling the truth to me. She seemed not to understand what I was talking about. I replied, "Okay, if you can't be honest, then I'm leaving." At this point, she became frantic and asked, "Are you talking about yoga?" I assumed that was a beginning. She told me that she hadn't been attending yoga when I asked her what she was talking about. "Where were you going if you weren't going to yoga?" I asked. She claimed that because she had been so worried lately, she was taking walks to decompress. "What has been causing you so much stress, and why did you feel the need to lie to me about what you were doing?" I inquired. She said she didn't know how to tell me and attributed it to the transfer preparations. I persisted in pressing, saying, "So you decided to lie. Why did you feel the need to let me know that you were taking a stroll to relieve stress? I responded that I wasn't stressed when she stated she didn't mean to lie and that she was concerned she would be making me feel more stressed. She didn't appear to be telling me everything. What do you mean? She asked, looking at me in amazement. I think you're lying about more than just skipping yoga, I remarked, glancing at her. I'm asking you to be honest once more. If you continue to lie, this won't work because you have already lied to me. Oh, are you talking about last weekend when I went for drinks with some friends and came home late? She followed up on her attempt to deflect by claiming she was at a loss for words. I sensed something that disturbed you. I didn't know she went out late or drank drinks. I questioned her whether she was lying again or if it was what she actually did while I was at work, a few hours away. She explained that although she went out for drinks that evening, she didn't run into her purported best friend. In response, I inquired, "Who did you see?" "No one, I just drank alone," she claimed. Naturally, I wasn't buying this, and I was getting impatient. I therefore questioned her, "Is that something now? That you are drinking by yourself?" "Yeah, maybe I have a problem," she replied in response. She had one final chance to be honest before I left, so I told her to get to the bottom of her drinking problem. She claimed she didn't know what else to say after giving me a glance. I simply got up and walked away. I usually take a drive to keep away from her when we argue. She likely assumed this was the same, but then she noticed that I had taken my Xbox, clothes and toiletries. She started blowing up my phone at that point. There's nothing more to say, I told her, because I offered her an opportunity to be honest and she didn't. She pleaded with me to come home so we could discuss things face to face. She claimed she didn't know what she believed she'd done or why I was so unhappy. She reaffirmed her love for me and her vow to never harm me. I felt a new ache in my chest just listening to her say that. The words were always consoling, and I blindly believed them. It felt like a dull, sharp knife cutting through my heart in the most worst way right now. I hung up because I couldn't take it any longer. Before I was prepared to respond once more, she called back roughly 40 times. "Did you talk to Karen, the best friend?" she asked this time. She responded, "Come home, I don't want to say this over the phone," when I asked why. In order to lower my heart rate, I agreed and continued driving for a little while longer. I then returned home. "I assume you spoke to Karen," she began. She went on to describe how they went out for drinks a few weeks earlier when I was at work, but I just gazed at her. When a few men began purchasing drinks for them, they simply cooperated. One of the guys tried to kiss her as they were leaving, but she quickly retreated and informed them that she was married. She then expressed her regret and wanted to inform me, but she was a fool and chose to keep it a secret from me. She also informed me that without asking, Karen provided his friend my wife's number after hooking up with the other guy. Since then, he has texted her a few times, but she has never responded in writing. After all of that, I just asked her to show me her phone, and she did. Other than her mother and me, there were no texts at all. This was new to her because she never deletes her texts. When I investigated the deleted images, I discovered one of a guy I didn't recognize, even though her photos were clean. She told me it was the man who attempted to kiss her when I inquired who it was. "Why did you take a picture of him?" I asked her again. Once more, she placed the blame on herself, claiming that I was just being stupid. I pointed out that it's not a valid excuse and refused to allow her get away with it. I pressed her once more to explain her actions. She claimed not to know. "Is that all you want to tell me, or is there more?" I inquired, growing weary of the whole situation by this point. That was all she could think of, she said. I went out again. I didn't want to face any more hints of the truth. I climbed into my truck and headed out. She tried to stop me as she hurried outside, but I was already out of her grasp. After having my lunch and trying to think of what to do next, I went to the adjacent park and just sat on my tailgate. As I sat there, I started to recall other things I should have known better, like the times I worked a weekend shift and went to bed early. Along with some of her girlfriends, my wife went out to the club. She wasn't home when I woke up at 4 in the morning. I tried calling her several times, but nobody picked up. She called me back about half an hour later to ask if I could come get her. She informed me that they were unsuccessful in their attempt to hail a cab when I picked her up. Her buddy was approached by a pair of men who wanted to stop at home before offering them a ride. Her married buddy entered a room with one of the guys when they arrived at his residence. According to my wife, she looked for her for long before giving up and waiting with the roommates in the kitchen while enjoying a drink. When I tried to call her, she said she didn't hear her phone. We got into a fight over this, and she ended her friendship with her friend because she was disgusted by what they had done. I assumed that was the end of it. She once made the trip to another city to see a close friend. A scheduled girls' night was held. 4 of the girls were in their pajamas, watching movies while intoxicated. That's what I was told anyway. She then gave me a goodnight call at around 1 in the morning. She kept telling me that they were having a nice girls' night during our 20-minute conversation. Then, in the distance, I heard a man's voice. She initially denied hearing anything when I questioned who it was. Then, loudly, it occurred once again. "Oh yeah, ex-friend took a couple of guys with her," she answered, unable to deny it. "Everyone in this place is furious about it. She was 3 hours away and intoxicated. She forced me to put my trust in her once more." We discussed that as well as her refusal to inform me of their presence. She vowed never to place herself in such a predicament again. That obviously didn't stick. I was prepared to try this one last time after recalling all of those things and our discussions about them. My phone rang nearly instantly after I switched it back on. She was yelling for me to come home when I responded. I returned home by car. As soon as I stepped inside, she was there, crying uncontrollably. She kept saying, I'm so sorry," while seated on the couch. "What are you sorry for?" I asked her. She started to rock crazily back and forth. She confessed to lying about the man who attempted to kiss her after it took her a solid 5 minutes to collect her breath enough to talk. I asked her to explain what had transpired after giving her a quick glance. She claimed that evening, the 4 of them returned to his house and played about. Even though I knew there was more, I felt lightheaded simply listening to her say it. There seemed to be a million people talking into my ears at once, and the room seemed to be getting smaller. I believed that I was experiencing a panic attack. To get things back to normal, I went to the restroom and washed my face with cold water. "What exactly did you do?" I asked her again. I forced her to do it even though she attempted to avoid it. She went on to say that she gave him her head after he touched her. "Was that it?" I questioned her, knowing it wasn't all of it, and she said, "Yes." At this point, I was furious and informed her that I would no longer play the trickle truth game and that we would either stop talking or she would have to tell me everything at once. It took her a few more minutes to talk when she started crying once more. She now admits that they had another encounter and shared a bed. Then right away, "I'm so sorry. I will stop at nothing to make up for this because I love you." "Just the one time?" I asked her, knowing the truth. If she tells me the truth, I should please give her a chance to do everything she can to make up for it, she continued after pausing. I promised to give it some thought, and now the whole truth was revealed. She acknowledged that it had been an affair for over a month and that they had been having sex while I was out of town for work. She informs me that he is married and that their divorce is imminent. "Does he know you're married?" I questioned her. "Yes," she replies. "Do you think our marriage is failing if he was having an affair because his is failing?" I then questioned. "No, I don't think ours is failing," she responds, before going on to say, "I'm so dumb. I despise myself. Don't leave me, please. I can make this right." "How would you do that?" I inquired, and she stated she would do anything I requested. "What would fix this for you if you were in my shoes or the shoes of your affair partner's wife?" I questioned her. She said that it would be resolved if she knew the truth and could believe that I meant what I was saying. Then she said, "I'm trustworthy. I made a mistake and will not do it again." "Would you want to know the truth if you were his wife?" I questioned her. "Yes," she replied. "Then fix this?" I said. She asked, "Do you want me to call his wife?" after giving me a look. "If you believe that's what she would want," I said. She attempted to call but never received a response. Her cell phone rang a couple of minutes later. Karen Work was stated as the name. I knew it wasn't Karen because of the shocked expression on her face. "Is that him?" I questioned. "It was," she said. When I replied, he said, "Oops, I must have the wrong number," being the coward that he is. "No, this is the husband of the girl you have been having an affair with," I said. "She has something to tell you, so I'm going to let you talk to her." I handed the phone to her. She claims that she told him the whole truth, everything I know, that they were only having a brief affair and that he should never get in touch with her again. Before she hung up and asked him, "What divorce lawyer are you using?" I demanded to see the phone. "I'm not getting divorced," he responded. "Why did you tell my wife you were?" I asked him. "I didn't," he stated. I then requested to talk to his wife since I believed she should be aware of this just as much as I am. "Please dude," he said, "I didn't realize she was married. Don't let a mistake destroy my marriage." "You ruined mine over a mistake," I shot back. "It is only right that I inform his spouse." Since she was at work, he begged me not to tell her, promising to tell her everything when she got home. I hung up after saying, "All right, you do that." I then turned to my wife and asked her whether she knew the name and place of employment of his wife. She did. My wife called to let me know she was at work. She managed to get her on the phone and instructed her to sit down. This woman stated she will phone my wife back from her car as she was about to depart for the day. She did. "What's going on?" was the first question she asked. My wife informed her that she didn't want to start any mishaps and that she had something awful to share with her. "Please don't drive," she pleaded. The wife was obviously alarmed and inquired as to the whereabouts of her affair companion. My wife informed her that he was currently in their apartment and doing well. My wife went on to add, "I just wanted to let you know that we have been having an affair for the past month. Since I'm currently coming clean to my husband, I felt you should be treated with the same deference." After a minute or so of silence, the affair partner's wife claimed she would find out who my wife was if this was some sick joke. She hung up after that. Karen Work texted my wife less than 10 minutes later, saying, "Thanks, you just ruined my life." I picked up the phone and replied, "You just destroyed 2 marriages and 4 lives. Remember that. You bit of junk, you were to blame for this." My wife pleaded with me to stay with her for the next hour. She promised me sexual favors, counseling, and the promise that she would always be by my side. Thanks to the comments, this was just what I expected. Then as a reward, she suggested that we take that trip. She said, "We need time away. My work schedule has been separating us lately, so we need to get together and spend some quality time." And just what I thought she would say. I went, but she wasn't expecting me to inform her. Additionally, she wasn't prepared for me to inform her that I already had a counseling appointment scheduled. She most certainly didn't anticipate my telling her that I had slept with her in my own bed. She probably didn't anticipate that I would have a hotel reservation in place. She sobbed on the floor when I told her all of that. She began to complain that she didn't deserve to live. She advised me to break up with her immediately since she is too awful to be with anybody else. That was how it continued for some time. I listened to her justifications for 4 hours straight, during which time she tried to give me a hug, a cuddle, or even a head if I would just remain and work things out with her. When I finally phoned Karen, I informed her that her unfaithful buddy was suicidal and asked her to come watch her. After that, I departed. I haven't spoken to her since that incident, which occurred about a full day ago. All day long she has been phoning and texting me. All day long her friends and family have been phoning and texting me. Each one has a different justification or request for sympathy. The only person to write to me was her father, who assured me that he would always love me like a son, no matter what, and that I should act in my own best interests. I had my first good cry since this whole thing started when I read it. My counselor Sharon and I have appointments tomorrow and Thursday, respectively. Though I'm unsure of everything until it happens, I believe I know where this is headed. I apologize for the long story. It's just a good method to get things out. Once more, thank you very much for all of the letters and comments. I feel so much less damaged and more hopeful because of the folks who are sharing their own tales like this. I truly appreciate all of your words and actions on my behalf. That concluded the update. Before I offer my commentary, we have one last update regarding this story. All I can say at this point is that I believe the OP did a fantastic job of persuading his unfaithful wife to tell the truth. Final update. Well done, he. Let's proceed to the last update now. It was a pretty eventful week. I've been alternating between my brother's house and camp. I only stay on nights when I have an early appointment because I want to be as unobtrusive as possible. I've benefited much from my employer's permission to take a few weeks off for personal reasons. I've kept going to see the therapist, Sharon. So far, I've seen her 3 times. Personally, I feel better now than I did a week ago. Therefore, even if I don't think our visits are very fruitful, I do think they're a nice opportunity for me to get some things off my mind. I will therefore continue for the time being. Last Thursday, I had a conversation with a lawyer. I compiled a list of all assets and financial information, including debt, under their guidance. After that, I went to the bank and requested that they put a stop on our accounts so that no one could take money out of them without the other person being there. This won't prevent either of us from obtaining new money, just the old shared money, because we both have our paychecks deposited into our own accounts. Although it's now too late, the lawyer did advise me to wait to confront her until after I've served her the papers. I was getting calls and texts from my wife, her family, and her friends almost non-stop throughout the entire week. My sister-in-law hosted a family gathering at the cabin this past weekend. I went and had to tell my family the news. Now that it's public knowledge, I can incorporate them into my recuperation process. Up until about 8 o'clock on Saturday night, everything was going as smoothly as it could be. When my wife's automobile arrived, My dad, brother and I were gathered around the fire. Matt, my brother, assured me he would handle everything. In order to avoid being seen from the driveway, my dad and I made the decision to take a stroll around the property. I could hear my wife yelling at my brother to move out of the path as we were just about to enter the woodland. She was accompanied by a few of her pals, who were also shouting at Matt and urging him to shut up. He tried his hardest, but in the end they were too much for him. She pushed past him and came running toward us. She must have noticed us going in that direction. I stated I would handle her, even though my dad offered to handle it. My wife, who I'll just call Kate, came racing to me and started crying. I didn't stop her from giving her a hug right away, but I also didn't give her one in return. She pleaded with me simply to talk to her. I accepted, and in order to have some peace, we strolled around the property's trails. The other guy's wife has left him, according to Kate. She told me that he blamed her for everything and threatened to kill himself over the phone. She says she hasn't spoken to him since telling him to simply do it. She then takes out a piece of paper and begins enumerating the ways she intends to make amends with me. She provided all of these services on the first day, including sexual requests and couples therapy. And then she surprised me. I don't want to continue living this way, she says. She stated that she wants us to both quit our jobs, go abroad, and open the small beach bar we've always discussed. She claimed that if I accompanied her, she would depart immediately. In order to contextualize this is all that came to mind for the previous week as I tried to picture my life after the divorce. I assumed that everything would have to be restarted. I might as well add another element to the tremendous change I'm currently going through and just do what I want. I was reminded of how much I missed her and wanted to be with her when I heard her express the same desire. I knew I had to cut the conversation short at that point. Her buddies were waiting for her when I escorted her back to her car. I informed her that although I couldn't guarantee anything more, I would be open to talking on the phone. She felt enough at ease to depart. Since then, we've talked on the phone every night, but it never changes. She sobs and pleads with me for another opportunity. I hung up after becoming upset with her for what she'd done. Right now, I'm having a terrible time missing her. It's difficult to talk to someone who was my best friend for decades. It is heartbreaking to realize that all of our hopes and dreams have been thrown away. The only thing I want is to simply move and start fresh somewhere else. She wrecked it, even though I wanted that to be with her. She took that away from me, that's all. We only have that information from OP. With any luck, he was able to complete the divorce, relocate to a beach, and open his bar. At least we know that the affair partner received his just desserts and that he was able to confront his unfaithful wife. I thus hope that the original poster is content with his life and enjoying himself wherever he is as I wrap up this film, which has already been long enough. In addition, how many of you would like to see a beach bar like the one the original poster mentioned? That is one of my retirement fantasies, and I'm aware of it. My family wants me for Christmas after 8 years of estrangement, but can I forgive them when they only care about my grandfather's inheritance? My family has invited me, my wife, 27 female, and my daughter, 1 female, for Christmas after we were disowned 8 years ago. After my friends gave me different opinions, one of them suggested that I submit my problem here to receive feedback from strangers on the internet. I am a 25-year-old man who is the youngest of 4 children. My mom is 52 and my dad is 54. My siblings are my twin brother Casey, 25, male. Sarah, 28, female, and Michael, 31, male. For background, I was the family's black sheep growing up, and I was aware of that from an early age. You see, there are a lot of athletes in my family. My mom played volleyball. Michael played soccer. Sarah played softball. Casey was the team's outstanding running back, and my dad was a standout basketball player at a D2 school. My parents were always interested in my siblings and hardly ever came to my events, so I had to practically beg them to come to my tournaments. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but I was interested in archery, which my family referred to as a wimpy sport. I competed in over 20 tournaments between the ages of 14 and 16, but my parents only attended one. Although they never abandoned me, they never showed me the same level of emotional support that they did for my brothers. I was angry about that as a teenager. Every time I attempted to discuss this with them, they would accuse me of being attention-seeking. But this isn't the reason my family disowned me. I started dating Amy, 25, female, who was in my grade at the time, when I was 15. I introduced her to my parents and siblings after we had been dating for approximately 6 or 7 months, and they all thought she was great. Even though I was young, I could imagine us working together in the future. After nearly 2 years, I was informed by one of Amy's former friends that she had been unfaithful to me for a few months. I didn't know who the man was at the time, but she told me it was my twin brother when I confronted her. She essentially informed me that although she loved me at first, her love for my brother was greater. When I confronted Casey at home later that day, I was so furious that I gave him a sucker punch and knocked him unconscious. I acknowledged that I shouldn't have acted violently, but my animosity toward him and my family simply exploded. I was transferred to live with my 48-year-old paternal aunt, who was now distant from the family and resided in a different city about 2 hours away. In exchange for my family not pursuing charges against me, I could have been prosecuted as an adult in court. Since then, I haven't communicated with them. It was difficult at first, but I eventually got over my desire for a relationship with them with the help of my aunt and her 48-year-old husband. After attending a university in my aunt's city and transferring to a different high school, I earned my degree as an electrical engineer. After a while, I met my wife and we were married. I considered inviting them to my wedding, but I decided against it because I didn't want any controversy. After that, my wife and I purchased a home an hour's drive from my aunt, and a year later, we were blessed with a daughter. Then, roughly a week ago, my parents messaged me on Facebook to invite me to spend Christmas at their place so we could catch up. I informed them that while I could have other plans, I would think about it and provide them with a definitive response shortly. Later, I received strange friend requests from Sarah and Michael. Because she is 2 months pregnant and does not want to deal with any additional stress, my wife has informed me that if I travel, she and my daughter will spend Christmas at my father-in-law's place. I concur with her. I would like to know if it would be wise for me to go and try to make amends with my family. Having a hard time deciding what to do. On the one hand, they might want to apologize because they feel horrible about what they did to me. However, I could be forced to apologize to Casey if I go there, which is something I don't want to do. Any guidance would be beneficial. Viewpoint. To start with, except for your aunt, your entire family seems like a bunch of jerks. The only cool person here is her. If I were you, I would inform them that I am spending Christmas with my wife, daughter, and father-in-law, thus I am unable to go. I would inquire as to whether choosing a different time is truly vital to them. That is, if you want to make amends with them or if you're interested in finding out what they want. There are many various circumstances in life that can help you alter your opinion. But I must admit that it seems a little strange that your brother and sister decided to add you as a friend after 8 years of no communication, following your parents' Facebook message. For this reason, if you're interested in meeting them, I wouldn't do it at your house or at theirs on Christmas. Meet in a park or someplace and then see where things go. Tell them to stop contacting you and that you're just not accessible if you're not interested in making amends. Proceed with your life after blocking them on social media. What are your thoughts on the matter as a whole? If you were in OP's position, how would you respond? Tell me in the space provided for comments. Remarks from the community. As a parent, I can't imagine not being able to communicate with one of my children for 8 years after my other child done something so horrible to him, as stated in Minute Box 3852. He struck him then. I simply cannot imagine that. If my son ever did something like hit his brother, I would completely understand. We're all still only human, even if I'm not supposed to say it. It's up to you if you can get over the fact that they turned their backs on you for 8 years and left you for your aunts. I'm not sure if I could myself. I doubt anyone would blame you if you're unable to see them again and choose not to. They are unaware of the whole tale if they do. They are also not worth your attention if they are aware of the whole story. Surprise Pants exclaims, "My man, there are no good answers here. I would spend Christmas with your current immediate family if they value it. You might pick a less stressful time and calmly express it that way if you want to spend time with an alienated family. I can understand if your family is a bunch of jerks, but it doesn't sound like anything serious happened that you couldn't all handle. Reconnecting might be worthwhile. At least you can try, even though my pessimistic side says it won't work out. When you do, don't discuss the past with anyone other than your wife and your therapist. Get one if you don't already have one." Angry Patient 18 says, "Making amends during a significant occasion like Christmas is never a good idea. Since it's obvious that they want to get back together because of your child, your wife is quite smart to avoid this event. Tell them you won't miss your daughter's first Christmas but that you're open to having lunch or coffee in a public setting in the new year. One blow to a brother who betrayed you led to your disownment. They were obviously searching for reasons to get rid of you. Now that you have a baby to snuggle, you are only of service to them. Take great care as you tread. They won't be able to see the infant for at least 6 months, even if you don't make amends." Extra details gleaned from OP's remarks. "They invited me to a large Christmas family event and this is the first time they have been in touch with me in 8 years. My parents host a supper for my entire paternal side on Christmas Day. I believe they are attempting to take advantage of me because they invited me on that particular day. Additionally, this is how they got rid of me. My aunt was shunned by her family after coming out as bisexual to them after graduating from college. My maternal grandparents weren't living at the time, and my mother is the only child. My dad essentially gave me away to my aunt because the other siblings refused to take me. Lastly, I've always been envious of my wife's close relationships with her siblings and family. That is the kind of family I always yearned for. Okay, so everyone in the community believes that if the original poster wants to get back together, it must happen at a later date. Naturally, after trust has been built, no one gets to view the infant. In addition, OP provided us with additional background information on his family. Let's now proceed to the update to find out what transpired. Naturally, though, I must tell you about my playlists, such as this one that exclusively has videos with updates. Let's go on to the update now. Update. Hello everyone. Although the past 2 weeks have been difficult, I want to thank everyone for their support and guidance. Allow me to catch up with you. I wanted to post earlier, but a few things got in the way. My wife started having excruciating stomach discomfort 2 days after Christmas, making it difficult for her to stand. I hurried her to the hospital with her sister, a 30-year-old woman, and we learned that my wife had lost the baby. To be honest, telling my wife what had transpired was the worst part for me. My wife had to remain for an additional 2 days because of difficulties related to the operation. To be honest, I have been making an effort to remain strong for my wife and daughter, but I am currently having difficulty. Let's go on to the original post's update. On the same day that I posted, the majority of you left comments urging me to avoid spending Christmas with them due to the holiday's importance. I agreed and made the decision to stay with my wife for the remainder of the holidays. Why should I make time for them when they never made time for me? I thought they would try to argue with me when I texted them this, but instead they stated they appreciated my viewpoint and were excited to see me after the holidays. I therefore started looking into my family to see why they had contacted me. What I discovered is as follows. Michael is employed by a large corporation in my hometown as a corporate lawyer. According to his Facebook page, he married his wife in 2016 and has 2 daughters. It looks like Sarah's husband is a doctor. They had a son together, and she was pursuing a nursing degree 8 years ago. My hometown is home to a friend of mine whose parents are friends with mine. She informed me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, whom she had been dating for years, due to mail fraud when I questioned her about her. Immediately following high school, Casey married Amy, and the 2 of them have 2 children. Using Facebook, I was unable to determine exactly what he or his wife does for a livelihood, but the fact that they purchased a large home during the epidemic indicates that they are not having a lot of financial difficulties. My mother is very interested in the wellness community, and my dad appears to be experiencing a midlife crisis. I then started outlining the reasons they might have sought to get in touch with me. Money. Not likely, given my wife's and my salaries were less than my parents' combined wage 8 years ago. Money is most likely not the cause, given my siblings are not experiencing financial difficulties. Although it doesn't seem likely, organ donation might be the reason. Given that he is my twin, a Redditor suggested that Casey would be my most likely mate. Since he was mentioned in a Facebook post about skiing a week before Christmas, I don't think it's likely. They might be trying to get in touch with me to get a relationship with my kid, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why my parents would want to meet my daughter, as she is not their first granddaughter. They probably discovered my daughter's existence because my wife's Facebook page was open to the public. Since then, she has made her account private. Then I called my aunt, the estranged person who took me in, and told her what had happened. She told me why after all this time, they were contacting me. You must comprehend the reasons for my aunt's estrangement in order to comprehend this circumstance. 4 children were born to my 76-year-old grandma and 79-year-old paternal grandfather. My aunt was the 3rd oldest, followed by my dad, who was the 2nd. After graduating from college, my aunt started dating her partner and came out to her parents as bisexual. She was instantly rejected by my grandparents, who also forbade any communication with her. But my grandfather started contacting people around 4 years ago. My grandfather had been inquiring about my life and whether I was married or had children around a month ago. In response to my grandfather's backing of Casey for his actions, my aunt called him out for wanting to know about me. At that point, everything changed. My grandfather informed my aunt that I should be cut off from Amy since I had cheated on her with one of her close friends. My grandfather despises cheating since he is a devout man. My family had informed him that the buddy with whom I had allegedly cheated went to Casey and Sarah for consolation and support after she came clean to Amy. I approached and viciously attacked Casey and Sarah as soon as I learned of this. I did not touch Sarah, And I did not viciously assault Casey, even though she was the one who attempted to separate us. My jaw fell when my aunt told me this. It was unbelievable to me that they detested me so much that they would fabricate a horrible lie about me and disseminate it. Grandpa, who always believed Casey to be a wonderful kid, was startled when my aunt eventually told him the whole truth about what had actually happened, according to my aunt. My aunt refused to share my number when my grandfather requested for it. I understood my parents' and siblings' desire to contact me. It turns out that my grandfather threatened to cut off my parents and siblings from his estate if they would not offer an apology for their treatment of me and invite me to join the family for Christmas dinner. To put it in perspective, he is a multimillionaire. Therefore, they contacted me because they would not receive anything from Grandpa if they didn't, not to express regret for the wrongs they had all done to me in the past. What a group of avaricious individuals. My aunt informed me of this, therefore I made the decision to block them all. For what reason should I answer any of them now? To me, they're all dead. After everything we went through, I have a wife to support and an in-law family that appreciates me. But this is not the end of it. On my work phone, I got a call from an unidentified number 3 days after New Year's Eve. Because of my job, I frequently receive calls from unfamiliar numbers, and when I answered, I heard my grandfather's voice. He probably found my number on the website of my business. He started by apologizing for not attempting to contact me during the previous 8 years. He expressed his sincere regret for being unable to attend significant occasions like my wedding, graduation, and the birth of my daughter. His cutting me off didn't hurt me because we weren't that close before. Later in the call, he informed me that he was adding me to his will and severing the rest of my family because he was so disgusted with them. To be completely honest, I have no idea how to feel about that. Although the money would be beneficial, I do not want him to use it as leverage to pressure me and my daughter into dating. We spoke for around 30 minutes. My grandpa told me something that really infuriated me, but the way the call proceeded gave me hope that we could have a positive relationship. He expressed his disappointment to me about my daughter's refusal to adopt the family name. For background, the question of what last name to use arose after I married my wife. I was unable to adopt my wife's last name for legal reasons, but as a couple, we agreed that all of our future children would bear her last name. I started berating my grandfather at this time, calling him a senior old guy and a lot of other derogatory terms. I instructed him to never get in touch with me again. This man has the gall to imply that after everything I've been through, I won't allow him to use the money I get to manipulate me. I'll give the money to a local charity even if I get it. This is unlikely though, because he is a man of broken promises. I don't care how he perceives me anyway. Money is not the reason I want to be in a relationship with him. He had been trying to get in touch with me and hear my side of the story for 8 years. He claims to be disappointed in me when he does manage to contact me. My wife's and my careers are doing well right now, so maybe we'll be able to pay for our kids' tuition. I will only email him when I'm emotionally prepared. I've had a pretty difficult few weeks, and I'm hoping to get through them. Both my wife and my in-laws have made their Facebook accounts private. I don't understand what they do to try to get in touch with me. Hell, they would undoubtedly try to locate me by hiring a private investigator. I think they are unaware of my residence, but you never know. I've considered obtaining a restraining order, but it will be challenging because there are attorneys in the family. I've stopped using Reddit for the time being. I appreciate all of your advice and I hope this new year brings you all the best. Will it be? I want to start by sincerely apologizing for the ordeal you and your spouse, in fact, your entire family from that side, went through. Yes, like you say, screw your grandfather and the rest of your family and go on. Cool if he does leave you something. It's also cool if he doesn't. It's not that important, is it? I'm going to end this by wishing you and your wife the greatest possible future. Thank you for sharing, OP, and be careful. After all of that, I do need a post that lifts my spirits, so if you agree, stay with me and let's get started. This post, written by an ex-Wall Street person, comes from the subreddit Malicious Compliance. Legally, I cost Bank of America almost $8,000. For some background, I have over 30 years of experience in the mortgage industry. I am quite familiar with it. Bank of America has never appealed to me, particularly their servicing section. This incident occurred a few years ago. I recently learned about this group. To my annoyance, the mortgage broker I used to restructure my mortgage offered Bank of America the servicing rights. Usually, the organization you pay to service your loan is not the same as the one that owns it. I felt irritated. Since most people at the time assumed that loans would remain on the books for at least 3 years, I calculated that Bank of America spent about $5,000 to service my loan. Additionally, mortgage servicers receive 0.25% of your outstanding loan balance annually, which can be adjusted to 0.375%. It is derived from your bank interest payments. Bank of America revealed that they will be collecting a $5 fee for the convenience of online mortgage payments around 2 months after the servicing move. Unjustified money grab indeed. I consider myself fortunate to be able to contribute a bit more each month to my home payment. I therefore drew out $400 in quarters from my local bank the following month in addition to my home payment. I then proceeded to my neighborhood Bank of America location and gave them my quartered mortgage payment along with other repayment documents. I requested a payment receipt. In order to lower the current debt and, consequently, Bank of America's costs, I overpaid my mortgage. You can write a check, you don't have to pay in coins, the kind branch manager remarked. The branch manager actually chuckled when I answered, I could, but I would charge a $9.50 convenience fee for the stamp on my check and the ink used. They counted the money and gave me my receipt. The charges persisted the next month, so I visited another nearby Bank of America location that had received negative Yelp reviews because of an unfriendly bank manager. I followed suit. Write a check, the branch manager instructed. We do not accept quarters. Should I call the Consumer Financial Protection Board, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the top bank regulator in the United States, and the banking commissioner of the local state and inform them that you would not accept legal tender? I requested a conversation with the district manager. A stench was coming from me. He reluctantly had the employees count the quarters after roughly 20 minutes, and I was given a receipt. I informed the management that the next time, I would bring dimes. I brought dimes the following month. He took them, but he kept glaring at me. Bank of America canceled the convenience fee after the payment was made. I refinanced my mortgage at a reduced rate the next month. For a service that they anticipated would last at least 3 years and 5 years to be profitable, Bank of America only received about 6 months' worth of payments. Am I the asshole for flirting with 19-year-old girls at a birthday dinner and defending myself when they called me a predator? Original post: I'm 31 and recently ended a long-term relationship. I was broken. I recently went to this cool restaurant bar downtown with one of my buddies to have a good time. Anyone of any age can come in. While we were there was a girl who was celebrating her 19th birthday. They sang happy birthday and they were allowed an outside cake with 19 on it. The birthday girl was pretty, so I wanted to go chat her up. Her friends were super cute too. My buddy told me to leave them alone and that they looked like babies. He didn't want to go over at first, but since the breakup, every other woman but my ex has been invisible. So he went to Wingman with me. We walked over and wished her a happy birthday. I thought things were going well and the women were laughing. Then all of a sudden one of the girls snaps at me to take a fucking hint, R. Kelly. I was taken aback and just said, excuse me. She said to read the room and that they were uncomfortable. Another asked us to go away. I was going to go, but I was really bothered by the R. Kelly comment. I said it's fucked up to call me a predator when we are all adults here. My buddy wanted to leave, but I stood my ground. The birthday woman said that it didn't matter, it's weird for someone my age to hit on them, especially when they make it obvious that they are uncomfortable. Then made another R. Kelly comment by asking if she looked like Aaliyah to me. Which upset me again. I apologized for making them uncomfortable, but that didn't give them the right to call me a predator. One of the women said it was a personal problem. I said that adults are allowed to hit on the adults. It's not a crime. One woman just asked why I was still standing there and yelled at me to go away. I was pissed off, and when I left, their entire table was singing Remix to Ignition and laughing their asses off. I was furious and humiliated. When we sat back down, I was seething. My buddy said that it was my fault for not seeing the signs that they were uncomfortable. To him it was obvious, so he wanted to go. He called me delusional. I pointed out that they were laughing and he said it was just uncomfortable laughter. I told him that I had every right to be mad about being called a predator when they were all 18. 19. It's a horrible accusation to make. My ex was 6 years older than me. He said that they weren't calling me a predator, just weird for going for teens. He said it was wrong of them to sing after me and that was bullying. But I should have left long before that. I felt like he should have stuck up for me. Was I wrong for sticking up for me or for hitting them in the first place? I was respectful and not creepy at all too. Edit. For the record, I do date women my age and older. This was the first time I approached much younger women. Edit. Alright guys, I get it. I let my pride get in the way of things here. Can't fix it, we'll do better next time. Relevant comments. Comment 1, YTA. For being creepy, not taking a hint, and arguing about it to women who asked you to leave. You're upset about being called a predator but don't seem to care that your inappropriate behavior made a group of women in public feel uncomfortable. Comment 2, Typical nice guy. Comment 3. The table singing remix to Ignition was also hilarious in how badly it pissed off the OP. Comment 4. He is extra YTA for standing his ground when they asked him to leave. What did he think would happen? They would admire his persistence and realize they were wrong all along and he was actually a nice guy who they should all sleep with. Comment 5. Or they all look sheepish and he could leave like a boss having owned all those bitchy women. Comment 6. Then the entire restaurant would clap. Comment 7. And all the women would throw their knickers at the clear alpha male. Comment 8. YTA. The fact that both the girls and your friend easily recognized that it was creepy to hit on her, should tell you that it wasn't okay. Comment 9. The rare moment that an AITA post turns out to be the asshole. Praise be. Comment 10. YTA, you're 31 hitting on a 19-year-old, and you can't confirm how old the other girls were. Probably around 17, 18 and 19. That's very creepy and you made them uncomfortable and then didn't take a hint, then got mad when they had to be mean to you for you to go away and you still didn't go away. This is predatory behavior and I'm not really sure what you thought was gonna happen. Posted by Noi. I have never had a Reddit account before, but my journalism TA showed us it and sometimes I'll just check the front page for news. Earlier I saw a post up there that basically described my birthday dinner like 3 weeks ago. At first I didn't gaff, but now I just felt the need to clarify a few things. Even though I know most people called him an asshole. Some people got aggy about the Raquel comment and singing Ignition. Was it mean? Yes, but I'm done being nice to creeps. This was not a bar. It was a bar and grill, but it was mainly a restaurant that just happened to serve drinks. We were sitting near a family. So we weren't in a setting where people go to get hit on. We were minding our business and marketing in the corner booth. He came and wished me a happy birthday. I said thanks and we all went back to our conversation. I did appreciate being told happy birthday. But he stuck around. We laughed uncomfortably and went back to our conversation. He stuck around and kept interrupting us. Each time he said something, we nodded and then turned our backs to him. We said thank you bye a few times. But he was still standing there, talking to us. His friend kept finding excuses to leave. I was annoyed, uncomfortable and disgusted, but I gave him a respectful, okay, have a good night. Here's some cake for home bye. But he grabbed the cake and sat down in our booth. He said, the nights are not over yet. Then my friend just snapped, and if she didn't I was going to. When she called him R. Kelly she wasn't accusing him of being a pedo, but a creep. 30-year-old guys who hit on us creepy and disgust us, point blank period. We were nice the entire time and I even gave them a million hints and cake for the road. His friend was even finding reasons for them to leave. Then he had the audacity to stand there and fight us on it. I told him that he was way too old for us and it was creepy from the start. When he left we started singing Ignition among ourselves, not singing it after him. AITA throwback that our parents put us on. Instead of crying over our night being ruined by a creep, we turned it into a fun moment with karaoke. P.S. When he asked us our age and gave us his, we became a million times more uncomfortable. Guy was 30 trying to get with 18-year-olds at a birthday dinner. We're used to old men bothering us and it's always gross. To the if he was an ugly crowd, he was a decent-looking fit guy. If I never met him, I'd set him up with my aunt. But he was in his 30s and that is way too old. This isn't porn, and I haven't met a single girl desperate for a 30-yo divorce dick. Being called legal is demeaning. Everything about it was sickening. When we came over, announced his age, then asked us ours, I almost yacked. It was like he was IDing us, at a family restaurant. Fuck outta here. I'm tired of having to be polite to guys who are creepy and disrespectful. Edit, 30-year-olds aren't gross by being 30. Everyone gets older. 30-year-olds who bother you to flirt during the birthday dinner are. Edit, I really appreciate the support, but please don't spend your money on gold for me. That's not why I posted, but I do appreciate it.